How you doing today? Nice. Good, good. Any interesting videos, anything you see recently that caught your eye? Shake, shake, boom. Shake, shake, boom.
Yeah.
I'm gonna guess that's another K-pop video. Alright, so let me. Oh, wait. Oh, I see. Can you see my screen, Gabrielle? I'm using a dual monitor, so I just want to make sure you can see my screen. You see it. It says YouTube, and then you see the C.L.I.C.K Stray Kids.
Yeah.
You see it? Okay, cool. Just making sure you can see it. All right. Actually, what I might do is this. Sorry, we got a new setup now, so I just want to make sure we all on the same page. Guess I can't do that. All right. Well, as long as you can see my screen, I guess that's fine. Okay, so I'm gonna play this video and we'll see what it's is this the one? Okay. Oh, so this is not K-pop then. This looks like something else.
It is K-pop.
Oh. But they just have Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds in it?
Yes.
Alright, well we'll see what they're talking about. Alright.
It's recommended to stay home. Why didn't you what the hell's going on? What? So, for 30 minutes. Wait, no. The one thing. A toilet? Yes. A sink? No. Toilet paper. Good evening. And thank you for watching C.L.I.C.K. I'm Ryan Reynolds. And we have breaking news. us tonight at CCD News. Join us next week. I don't think that's what you Any chance that you're looking for an older, less agile member? No. Great.
Same. Chick going. Okay. So first, tell me what you thought about it, Gabriel. What'd you like about it? Like what made you show me this video? Everything.
And yeah, like how Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Lauren was it? Jack.
Yeah, Hugh
Was
Jack.
it on the video?
Hugh Jackman. Okay. Yeah, that was cool because initially I didn't think it was a K-pop video when I saw them. I'm like, wait, is this the right video? But I like how they added them in there. My guess is that, let me see when this came out, because it seemed like it was supposed to be around the time when Deadpool vs. Wolverine came out, since they had them both in there. Yeah, this came out 7 months ago, so I'm guessing this was this was a good marketing thing, you know, because around this time, Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds were in, you know, the movie Deadpool vs. Wolverine, and then they're in this video, so I'm sure maybe people want to watch it and say, oh wow, well, wonder what they're doing here. But it also made K-pop people want to see the Marvel movie because they were like, wait, who are these guys? You know, so I think it was a good marketing tactic. That was cool too. Anything else, or you just liked everything about it? Some parts I liked that I thought was interesting.
I liked everything about it. That's all.
Okay. Yeah, I like the Ryan Reynolds and Wolverine aspect. I liked, of course, the dancing. I like the shots. Yeah. I like these shots a lot. Yeah, this is cool. Nice. Well, a movie I saw recently, I don't know if you've heard of it, it's called Mickey 17, with Robert Pattinson. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Parasite, but it was the same director who directed Parasite. I saw that in theaters. Yeah, I'll just show the trailer for it real quick.
Hi, Vicky. Are you experiencing any vertigo?
I guess I am feeling a little dizzy. Oh, wow. Did you see that? Nah, I wouldn't be surprised if you were thinking at this point, what have I done? Nothing was working out, and I wanted to get off of Earth.
You're applying to be an expendable?
Yeah.
You read through the whole application.
I should have read through it.
Once you die, we'll print a new version of your body.
They made me work my ass off on one mission after another.
Every time you die, we learn something new, and humanity moves forward.
Oh, wait. He's lying. It's fine. Vicky, it's not looking very good for you. Yeah, no. I'm sure you're used to it by now. What's it feel like to die? Even on my 17th go around, I hate dying. Why aren't you dead? Multiples. In the case of multiples, you exterminate every individual. That's below us.
rock, paper, scissors, then we'll just shoot the loser.
Wait, what happened? Did you say something?
I don't like you, but I'm you. I'm not you. I'm gonna kill you.
You say you got a meeting right now? Yeah. So that was Mickey 17. The trailer made it look really good, but I won't spoil it. But it was okay. It's not, I wouldn't say it's for the average person, just because there's a lot going on. It's like dark comedy mixed with sci-fi, mixed with so comedy. Well, yeah, it's like action, sci-fi, and dark comedy all mixed together. So it's a weird kind of fusion, and it's different than most of the movies that this director makes, because he doesn't really play with the idea of sci-fi. Like you saw, like the Duplicate, Robin Pattinson's like two versions of him. That's a very sci-fi element that the director doesn't usually incorporate. So when I saw the movie, it kind of threw me off, because I'm like, wait, this is not what he normally does, which is fine. You know, a lot of directors step outside of the box and try new things, so I applaud it, but it just caught me off guard. But I wouldn't say I necessarily was engaged in the film. I was checking my phone a lot. I was getting up, looking for something to eat. That never happens. So that's how I know this movie didn't really draw me in. But my friend that I went with, he liked it a lot. Well, he liked it. I wouldn't say a lot. He rated it like a 7. He rated it like an 8. I rated it like a 7 out of 10. So, but the acting was good. As you can see, the cinematography was really good. Like some of these shots. You know, like I said, it has some sci-fi elements. It was kind of funny. Robert Pattinson did really good acting. The effects were nice. The lighting was good. The editing was good. It was just, the story was kind of weird to me. It was like a lot of just dragging, and I'm like, get straight to the point. But with that being said, you might like it. So if there's something you might want to check out, definitely do it. Just see or get your own opinion on it. But yeah, Mickey 17, it was interesting. It was really interesting. It was based off a book too. So the director took made his take on a book that was already created. So it's not really an original screenplay. It kind of is, but not really. He adapted it from a book. So yeah, that's Mickey 17. That's a movie I saw recently. Okay, so today I want to talk about color. I want to talk about color grading. And I don't think we talked about this yet. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we talked about color grading yet. But before we get into it, do you know what color grading is?
The change of color.
Okay, what is it in relation to film? Like when you hear color grading in film or in movies or in cinema, what do you think that is? Like, what is that to you? And it's okay if you don't know. I'm just curious.
I don't know.
You say you don't know?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I was just curious if you had any background knowledge of it. Well, color correction and color grading is basically the color of the video. It's the way that the colors come off, right? So, you know, sometimes you may see movies that are really orange or really blue or really yellow. It's just whatever color the film has. And color is my second favorite part of film. My first is cinematography, but I like color grading because I like talking about color grading because I like color and color theory a lot. And if you ever taken art class, like a photography class or a painting class or any type of class that involves visual colors, that involves colors in general, you may talk about color theory and what that is. But I won't go too deep into it just because we don't have that much time. But I'll cover the fundamentals of it and why it applies to filmmaking and video editing and why it matters. And I'll also go into CapCut too and show you how to adjust color to make your videos a little bit more cinematic. And when you came in here last time, the most recent time I think you came in class, we did some color grading. I don't know if you remember, but it was us changing the colors from like bluish to yellow, like just changing the colors basically. And that was very beginner color grading, but they have other softwares out there where you can go really deep and really make the videos look really cinematic. And so color grading is important because, like, why is it important, right? Why is it important to video editing? Why do you really need to know about it? What's the big deal about it? Well, the big deal about color grading is that when you watch a movie, the color of the film gives off a visual element that draws you in or makes you think about the film differently. So, for example, if you want to make a movie that was based in the 1950s or the 1930s, you might have, hold on, let me extend this. You may make your color grading look grainy, right? You may make it look black and white to convey that this movie was filmed in the olden times, right? The 1930s, 1940s, because color wasn't around at that time, right? So if you make your film black and white, it already lets us know, okay, this is an old movie, right? This movie was supposed to be filmed it's supposed to take place in the 1930s, 1940s, right? Now, you've seen, I don't know if you've seen movies probably, but like old movies from the 1930s, 1940s, they're in black and white because color didn't exist. But if you look at movies now that are set in the 1930s, so movies that are filmed in like 2024 but are supposed to take place in the 1930s, 1940s, they are most of the time black and white. And I'm going to show you an example. It's a movie called The Lighthouse, with Robert Pattinson again and William Dafoe. So this is the movie The Lighthouse. Now, this movie looks like it was filmed in the 1930s, right? 1940s, very old school looking, grainy, vintage, that very old noir look. But this was actually filmed in, if I believe, 2022. Not 2019. Okay, so this was filmed in 2019. So they made this color palette, this color look, this color grade was intentional. It was to make this film feel like it was filmed in the old times, right? So that was why color grading is important. Now, if they would have used color in this movie instead of black and white, they may have still been able to pull it off to make it seem like it was filmed back in the day. But that black and white just makes it more believable. It really takes us in to that environment, right? So I think they use color grading good here, right? Because black and white, that has a different look than color movies. Black and white makes, I don't know how to describe black and white, but if you either see a photo that's black and white or a movie that's black and white, it gives you a different feeling than seeing it in color or seeing a movie in color. I never could describe it, but I guess you can say it gives it but it's not always that way, but it's just a different feeling, right? Black and white is just different. So I know a lot of photographers who strictly shoot in black and white, right? If you look at black and white photography or black and white or color photography, let's see. So if we look at this photo, all right, so on the left is color, on the right is black and white. Same subject, just a different color palette, but these give you two different feelings, you know what I mean? So I personally like black and white sometimes, but I'm more of a color guy. I love color a lot, but black and white, I do like it for certain things. But black and white has a very specific look and a very specific feeling, and it's not everybody's style, but it's some people's style, you know. I don't know if you ever seen the movie Logan with Hugh Jackman, the Wolverine movie. That movie was filmed in color. but they released a black and white version. So it was a movie. This was a really, really good movie, one of my favorites. But they also released a black and white version, and some people really like this. Some people like the color better, but it's just preference. But I think they did a good job with the black and white in this movie. And like I said, I'm not much of a black and white type of person, but I think they achieved it very well here. Same with The Lighthouse. So, so let me show you something else. So, what is that? Okay. Okay, so this movie is called Mad Max, Fury Road. Really good movie. And for most movies, right, they're filmed in this grayscale looking color side. Hold on, I think somebody's joining us. Let me see. 1 second. Okay, never mind. But, alright, so this movie, Mad Max Fury Road, right? So, most movies in the film world, right, they're filmed in this gray scale look. This very flat, desaturated, it looks gray, no color, right? This is how most movies are filmed on the camera, raw footage. So if you film a movie and you take the memory card out and put it on a computer, they come out like this, come out gray looking. Well, obviously that's not the color we want the movie to have when we release it. You want it to be colorful or cinematic or visually appealing. So when you start out, you get this kind of gray look, but then when you color grade it, you get something like this, which is more cinematic, more visually appealing. So they call this grayscale, and then this is the color graded version. So a person who changes the color of a film, they're called a colorist or a color grader. So we're doing video editing, or you may have heard a cinematographer or a director. Well, there's a person in the film world whose job is strictly to change the color of a movie to match what the director wants. So that person is called a colorist or a color grader. Those, you may hear either one. So like I said, their job is strictly to make a movie look from like this to this. And that I don't know if that seems easy or not, but it's not. It's really not, because these colors aren't natural. You don't see these colors in nature, right? When you're in the desert, the colors aren't this saturated. But for the movie's sake, you want stuff to look movie-like. So you're going to amplify those colors a little bit. You're going to saturate those colors a little bit to make it feel more of a movie, to make it feel larger than life. But if you ever go to a desert, you don't really see colors like this. Now, everybody has different eyes, and everybody looks at things differently. So I can't say that you don't see like this for sure, but most people are not seeing oranges this bright or this saturated. And that's on purpose. They're making the movies look more than what they really are. So, like I said, Mad Max Fury Road, that's how it looked before. This is before, and this is the after. And so if we go back, we can see here these colors, right? These look great. These colors are great. When you're in the desert, when you have filmed a movie in the desert, you want to show those oranges, that orange or brown from the sand, contrast against that blue sky. And I'm going to talk about why these two colors are actually important. These colors actually contrast one another. So a lot of movies actually follow this orange and blue palette. I'm going to show you some examples. But this is what a color grade looks like, right? This is when a movie's ready to release. This is what the final color looks like. Now, so if we look at this movie Joker, right? This is the Joker movie. When a director makes a movie, right? And like I said, the last step is typically the color grading. Once everything else is done, the director says, okay, let's color grade this movie to make it fit the visual aesthetic. What the director basically does is they give the colorist a palette, and this is what the palette is. You may have heard that in art or photography or whatnot, but a palette is basically a group of colors that represent the film moved. So the director probably told the colorist for this movie Joker, he or she probably said, well, he said, this is my color palette. These blues, these teals, these turquoise, this brown. I want my film to have this color palette. Can you do this? And the colorist or color grader will say, let's do it. Let me see what I can do. Let me try to get a look that fits the palette that you want. So if we look, it matches pretty well, right? We see this blue, it translates to that. This orange translates to his jacket. This translates to like this windowsill. This black translates to this like shadow. This blue translates to this. This and this kind of translates to the Joker's skin. So you can see how it matches up pretty accurately. And that's the whole point. You have a palette to match, and you have a palette for reference to see what colors you want for your film. Here's another palette from a movie called No Country for Old Men, one of my favorites ever. We can see the color palette here, right? This black or dark blue matches this. This like gravy green matches up here. This bluish green kind of matches his jacket. This matches his skin. You know, these colors match this palette right on this screen because it gives an accurate representation of what the color should look like. So that's what a color palette is. That helps the color grader create a visual mood for the movie based on what the director wants. So that's color grading. And like I said, the movies don't come out like this. The movies aren't recorded like this. This is not how they are on the camera. This is how it looks once it's color graded. So it looks completely different, right? It looks like this, like that grayscale look. All right. So color grading is extremely important to the visual mood. It adds so much more to the movie. And unfortunately, they don't give an award for best color grading. Like if you ever watched the Academy Awards, they give it for best director, best cinematography, best editing, best sound, best screenplay, best makeup, best special effects, but they don't give one for best color grading, which I think they should. But I guess color grading is like essential to a movie, so it's like it's not that big of a deal. It's like kind of expected to have good color grading, but I think they should because it's important. So that's what color grading is. It's basically creating a visual mood for a movie based off a color palette that the director gives. It's basically just the color of the movie. So that's color grading. Here's another example. Alright, this is how it looks when it comes out the camera, and then this is how it looks once it's edited. Big difference, right? This looks a lot better than this. Shadows, the blues, all of that. So that's color grading. Now, I remember how I mentioned those blues and oranges for movies. Let me show it again. So like this. So that blue and orange is a common color palette. So we see it here in Mad Max. But I'm going to show you all these movies that have this. So blue and orange color scheme in movies. So look at all of these movies that you may recognize. They all have that blue and yellow aesthetic, and there's a reason why, and I'll get into that. So the movie Jumper, one of my favorites, Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, Transformers, Step Up, Night at the Museum, G.I. Joe, the movie Brave, X-Men, The Dark Knight, Avatar, Avengers, The Bourne Identity, Cowboys and Aliens. A lot of movies have that blue and yellow. See all these movies, and there's a lot more. And that's on purpose. And the reason for that is because blue and orange complement each other on the color wheel. So if you ever heard of complementary colors or chromatic or analogous, you may have heard of just complementary color. That's like the most popular. But if we look at a color wheel really quick, you have primary colors and complementary colors. So complementary colors are colors that are opposite of each other on this color wheel. So if we see this, the opposite of blue is orange. The opposite of purple is yellow. The opposite of green is red. And a lot of movies have that complementary color scheme because it is more appealing to the human eye. It draws the human eye in more. Something scientific about it makes us believe the movie. Something about it. For some reason, complementary colors do that. So a lot of movies do it. They keep blue and orange together, like I showed before. I'm just having it on a new tab. See, so here's that blue and orange, right? Complementary colors. Again, that's why they're more appealing to the human eye. So blue and orange, and then sometimes you'll see red and green. So let's see some red and green. It's not as common. Blue and orange is the most common, but sometimes you get red and green. So this movie is what was this? The Mad Hatter, Alice in Wonderland. That follows it a little bit. The movie Her, that does it really well. The movie Amelie, and some other movies, they have this color scheme. It's just appealing to the eye, right? Like something about these colors just work. And then, oh, I didn't show it. Sorry. So here it is. Amelie, right here, the movie Her. So you can see how this is appealing. And so the other color scheme, so we did blue and orange, red and green, and yellow and purple. So again, yellow and purple isn't as common, but it does show up sometime. So the movie Blade Runner, La La Land, Aladdin, this movie Anna, I've never seen that. That looked good though. Uncut Gems. So a lot of movies follow that. Moonlight, Inside Out. So that's a very common color scheme, right? So again, these complementary colors work. They're just appealing to the human eye. So yeah, that's a little about it. So I'm gonna play this video on color grading really quick. Any questions at all?
That looks cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like I said, this is my favorite, one of my favorite aspects of filmmaking. Okay. Oh, before I show this, I want to talk about one more thing. Alright. So one last thing. So another important concept in color grading, you probably heard these terms before, maybe not. Hue, saturation, and value, right? So just a quick recap of what these are. Hue is just a fancy word for color, right? So the hue of grass is green. The hue of the sky is blue. The hue of my sweater is green. The hue of the cloud is white. The hue is just another word for color. It's just a fancy word. So somebody says, what's the hue of this? It's just, what's the color of it, right? So that's hue. Next is saturation. So what is saturation? Well, saturation is the shade of the hue. So with green, you have olive green, army green, pine green, right? Or yellow, mustard yellow, dark yellow, sun yellow, red, you have, or blue, you have turquoise, aqua. Like, these are different shades of a hue. So saturation is just the shade, right? That's all, how intense that a color is, right? Do you want it to be a dark red, or do you want it to be a light red, or do you want it to be a medium red? So the saturation is just the intensity of whatever color you have. And then value is the brightness, how bright or how dark. So hue is color, saturation is intensity, value is brightness. So I think this chart is good representation of showing what those figures are. And again, we'll go into this a little bit into CapCut, but I just want to point that out really quick.
It's like using the same content, but we use it in a different way.
Would you be able to sleep in a room painted bright red? Might be hard, right?
I'm on no sleep. No sleep. You don't know what it's like in there.
Colors elicit emotions and have a psychological effect on people. So unless you're shooting in black and white, in which case definitely review our video on tone, this is the video for you. Because today, we're going to show you how colors can be used to create mood. But you can go beyond placing a blue tint over an entire sequence. You can determine specifically what type of blue you want. There are three factors in determining color. They are hue, which is the color.
Sorry, this is a similar video. Well, I'll just play this, and I'll play the next one after.
Saturation, the intensity of the color. Brightness, how light or dark the color is. With just hue, saturation, and brightness, HSB for short, you can create a complex color scheme rather simply, and go from being just another director to being a true visual artist. First up, hue. Some movies choose an affinity of hue, utilizing a monochromatic color scheme. Those are just fancy ways of saying that a movie is mostly one color, or neighboring colors on a color wheel, also known as analogous colors. The Matrix is a classic example of a movie that mostly uses one color. That color? Green. Why? Well, the movie takes place inside of a digital matrix, and we associate green with code. Plus, the green in the Matrix has a certain sickly quality to it, reflecting the overall state of affairs in that world.
Welcome to the desert of the real.
Next up is the S in HSB, saturation. This movie used a post-production process called bleach bypass, which has a deeply desaturating effect. The color is drained out of these images. It gives the world of the movie a cold, raw, gritty sort of look. It also becomes reminiscent of the faded photographs, the black and white newsreels of the period itself. It takes us back in time. The final of the three is brightness. Earlier in this series, we covered brightness in terms of a film's overall tone, but brightness can be used to affect individual colors as well. Sometimes a movie elects to use entirely bright colors, particularly movies from the Technicolor era. Back then, bright, vivid colors were a reason to see the movies alone. On the other hand, during darker scenes like this, you can almost forget that this movie was shot in color. Now let's see what it's like when one movie does both.
When the destiny of a great fortune is at stake, men's greed spreads like a poison in the bloodstream.
It's using all darker colors. Contrast that with this scene, where all the colors are bright. In both instances, every element you see was chosen for its darker color, or lighter color to create a contrast within the film.
Wow.
So by utilizing hue, saturation, and brightness, you can precisely identify the right colors to create certain feelings in your audience. Bright images often seem lively and exciting. Darker images often seem dramatic, and on it goes. But rules were made to be broken.
I don't make the rules. Okay, I'll make it as easy for you as I can.
You get to decide what the colors mean. It's your movie, it's your world, and so make it your color palette. How do you make a violent red, the color of blood, feel like something else? In Her, Spike Jonze uses red to connote love. He does it by associating the color with the lead, Theodore, as he searches for love and ultimately finds it in his operating system.
Hello, I'm here.
Black is for bad guys like Darth Vader, right? Well, sure, until it's for Batman.
I'm Batman.
You get to make your own rules. Look at how Wes Anderson uses saturated colors to make otherwise mundane scenes about a family pop, almost like a comic book, while actual comic book films ground their high-concept plots in gritty, realistic tones. With the wealth of options post-production now provides, it's easier than ever to control the color palette. Of course, color grading can be an expensive, lengthy process, and it rarely can make up for a project that lacked a thoughtful color design strategy in pre-production. Want to dive deeper? Check the link to grab our free Film Color Theory ebook for more examples of color schemes. And see how some of your favorite films design their color palettes to elicit powerful moods. See you in the next video.
Alright, so I'm gonna come back to this. But I should have played this last, but I'm gonna play one more video. Okay. Well, I'll save this for last. Yeah, I'll save this for last. But okay, Gabriel, I have a question for you. What is your favorite color?
Blue.
Why?
Because I'm a Ravenclaw.
Is that from Harry Potter?
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. So you like blue because it's the color of a Ravenclaw. But why do you like Ravenclaw? Like, why do you like Ravenclaw and not Slytherin or Gryffindor?
I'm part of that house.
Which house? Oh, you're part of the Ravenclaw house?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you know why you're part of that house though? Like what characteristics are in that house that make you a part of it? Is it intelligence? Is it wittiness?
Yeah.
So intelligence.
Probably intelligence. Slytherin is like based off of like ambition and stuff.
Okay. So Ravenclaws are ambitious.
No, I'm talking about Slytherin.
Slytherin's ambitious.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what about Ravenclaw? Since that's the house you're in, why do you think you were chosen for a Ravenclaw? Like, what do Ravenclaws have that you represent? Like that you have? What qualities?
I said like intelligence or something. Intelligence. Let's listen.
Okay, intelligence. Okay, so you like blue because it represents Ravenclaw, which represents intelligence.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense because a lot of the times colors, if you ask somebody like what's their favorite color, like a lot of the times their favorite color, not all the time, but a lot of the time it has something to do with something in their childhood that gives them a strong emotion in their childhood. So for example, for me, my favorite color, I have two, but mainly green. And I like green because, I like being outdoors. I like nature. I like hiking, trees and stuff. So that's why I like green, because it reminds me of nature. Because nature is mainly green, right? Like the grass, the trees, leaves, green. So I understand why I like the color green. But some people may like, blue, or like you, or some people may like pink because for them, they love. It could be like as a kid, they've always loved desserts, and a lot of times, sometimes desserts have pink icing. It can get really specific. It's really up to the person. But if you really break it down and ask people what their favorite color is, you can kind of understand why it is, and you see how it makes sense. But sometimes people just like a color just to like it. But a lot of the time, there's some meaning behind why they like, or somebody likes a certain color. And I asked you that because colors. So let me pull up my screen. So I asked you that because when we think of colors, certain colors represent certain emotions, right? So when we think of red, what's the first emotion that comes to mind when you see the color red, when you see red? What's the first thing, like what emotion comes to mind when you see red, Gabrielle? Anger. Okay. Common, right? Anger, danger, violence, because that reminds you of blood, or like just fear, right? Red is the. I'll wait till she comes back.
Would you be
So, whenever you come back, Gabrielle, basically what I was getting at was, you said that for red, that reminds you of danger, anger, violence. Well, that's true, right? Even for me, like when I see red or think of red, that's what I think of. But on the opposite end of that, for some people, red could represent romance or love or intimacy. So it could be either or. There's no right or wrong. It just depends on how you use that color. So somebody can use red for blood or violence or danger, but another director or writer can use red to, represent love, intimacy, romance with roses and, a heart, right? Typically those are things that are red. So it could be either or. But
No, you're good.
the point I'm getting at is that color, although it's subjective, there's still some innate meaning that we attribute to certain colors. So this chart is a chart that talks about kind of the psychology of color in film and what certain colors represent in film. So we just talked about red. That can represent love, passion, but it can also represent violence, danger, anger, and power, depending on how you use it. We scroll down to pink. Pink, for a lot of times, represents innocence, sweetness, femininity, playfulness, empathy, beauty, right? We see pink, when I think of pink, the first thing I think of is like femininity, because, you know, as a culture, pink is typically for a woman, even though it's not, because it's just a color, but in society, pink is typically for a woman. So that's the first thing I think of. I also think of like sweetness and playfulness when I see pink. Now orange, here they say it represents warmth, sociability, femininity, happiness, friendliness, exotic, youth. That's true. I know for me, yeah, when I see orange, that represents warmth for me, friendliness for sure, but it can also represent youth and happiness. We scroll down to
Sorry, that was an accident. I didn't pick up.
I figured it was an accident. It's fine. But I'm glad you're back because I was going into something that I think was interesting. But we left off is you said when you think of red, you think of anger. Right. And so me too, right? When I think of red, I think of anger, violence, blood. But on the opposite side, red for somebody could also represent love or beauty or passion or romance, right? Because of like roses and hearts. Those are typically red, like Valentine's Day, that's a red. You know, so yes, it can represent danger and violence, but it can also represent love and passion. So it just depends on how that director uses it or how a person uses it, right? So if you look at this chart that I have here, this shows like the psychology of color in film. So we just talked about red. So you can see it represents love, passion, but like you said, it can represent anger, fear, power, violence. It just depends on how you use it. Now we go to pink. When I think of pink, the first thing I think of is femininity or womanhood, because, you know, in our society, pink is typically for women. Even though it's just a color, it should be for everybody. But in our society, you know, pink usually represents a girl or a lady. So that's the first thing I think of. But here they show that femininity also represents innocence, sweetness, playfulness, empathy, beauty, right? So it just depends on how you use it, right? So playfulness, femininity, sweetness, all that. Pink always reminds me of that. If we go down to orange, right? If we see orange in films, they typically represent warmth, youth, happiness, friendliness, desirability. Same for me. I don't know about you, Gabrielle, jump in if this is the case for you, but when I think of orange, I think of like the sun and warmth and like almost like happiness and feel good. What about you? What is orange? What do you think of when you think of orange?
A fruit, Cheetos.
Okay, that's true too, because Cheetos are, or I know a lot of people think of like orange, like the actual fruit, the orange, right? Or Cheetos, like that's definitely common. Well, what about? I didn't ask you about pink. What do you think of when you think of pink? What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of pink?
Person. Yeah, I don't know a person. Oh wait, no, Pink Ranger.
That's the first thing that comes to mind. Pink Ranger.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's the case. Yeah. Is the Pink Ranger a girl? You know.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah. So it represents womanhood, right? They didn't give the pink Power Ranger to a guy, right? Why is that? Because typically pink is for women. But you know, what color is just a color? It shouldn't have a meaning. It's just a color. But you know, in our world, pink is usually for a woman. If we scroll down to yellow, right? In movies, the color palette yellow, that typically makes us think of madness or sickness or obsessiveness or insecurity. I know when I think of yellow, the first thing I think of is sickness, like snot and like slime. I don't know that. Huh? Say that again.
Jaundice.
Yep, jaundice, exactly. That's like when your eyes are yellow, right? Yeah, so
And the positive is like a happy sun smile.
you said happy and sun and smiling.
Yeah, and lemons too.
Lemons, exactly.
Lemons.
Yep. So it can mean a bunch of things. Like I said, it's subjective, right? It could mean sickness in one movie, but could also mean positivity and smile in another movie. It just depends on how you use it. If we scroll down again, green, like I said, that's my favorite color. Typically when we see green, that represents nature, harmony. But it can also mean here corruption, immaturity, ominous, darkness, right? When you think of green, what's the first thing you think of?
Mint and the earth. And empty.
Yep, the earth. See, that's what I'm saying. A lot of people with earth, right? Because it's green, right? Save the planet. Green.
Mint.
Mints, exactly. That comes from the earth, though. See, that's a plant. So mint also. See, so you can see how green these topics translate into film as well. But I bet you didn't know corruption is green too, and I can see why, right? If you think of money, right? Money is green, right? And then you know, usually when money is involved in a movie, some type of corruption or jealousy or you know, obsessiveness, right? So that's why I think green is powerful because it can represent harmony, peace, and nature, but can also represent corruption, obsessiveness, and you know, envy. So green is an interesting color. Same with red. Those colors kind of go off of each other. Now blue, right? Your favorite color. When I think of blue, I think of iciness, cold, melancholy, sadness, yearning. You know that. But in here, they represent it as cold, isolation, passivity, melancholy. What about you? I know you've talked about it. You said Ravenclaw. Is there anything else that blue represents for you, or not really?
Blueberry, trustworthy.
Yeah, trustworthy. Yep, that definitely trustworthiness. And it's crazy because we don't know why that is. Like, we don't know why blue. Like, if you ask somebody, what's the first color that comes to mind when you think of trustworthiness? Blue is definitely the one that comes to mind. And I don't know why. You know what I mean? It just, for some reason, it's just that way. But maybe it was something as a kid or something everyone saw that made us think of blue as trustworthy. I don't know. But definitely. Now, purple is a less common one. Purple usually, when you see that in movies, that usually represents mystery or sensualness or eroticism or illusionary, right? So if you ever see movies with like strip clubs and dancers, they typically have purple lighting or purple hair. Or if you hear anything with dream or dreamlike, like Avatar, that's purple, or it's the spirits, right? Purple is typically a color that pops up. Black Panther, you know, like I said, dancing and on the pole and like dancers, and they usually have pink or purple hair with purple lighting. So purple is a weird, less common one, but that's typically what happens in movies with those colors. What comes to mind for you when you think of purple?
Royalty.
Royalty, that's a good one. That's a good one. That's a good one. Royalty for sure. Yep, I like that. That's not on here, but I agree. So yeah, you can see how colors get interesting, right? Certain colors remind you of certain things. Like, so if you had a movie about nature, it would be kind of weird to make everything red, because it's like, where did that red come from? Green is the best choice for that, right? But if you're making a movie about love, red would be the better option. You know, so it depends. But maybe but the other thing too, there are no real rules because color is subjective. You could make a movie. A love movie that's green or a nature movie that's red. You could do that. You could play it off and make it interesting and do something with that. There's no rules, but typically there's a psychology behind certain colors and why we feel the way we feel towards them. But again, it's art. You can do whatever you want as long as it has an intention and a purpose. That's the big thing. But you can't just go throwing around colors for no reason, right? If somebody's bleeding, like give them. I mean, you could, but it probably should have some intention behind it, so it makes sense for the audience. And we'll talk about intention too next, and like all of that. But yeah, so these are some popular colors. Is there something you wanted to add? No? Okay. Well, if so, just jump in. So we talked a little about color schemes, right? So there are 4 major color schemes that are used in movies. And you may or may not have probably never heard of these, but they may sound complicated, but they're really simple. So I'm gonna like really dumb it down. So the first color scheme is monochromatic, right? Then we have complementary, analogous, and triadic. So these are the 4 color schemes that are commonly used in movies. So I'll start with monochromatic, right? So when a movie, now let's go back to this color wheel. So you remember how we talked about complementary colors are opposites of each other on the color wheel? So green and red are complementary colors, orange and blue, yellow and purple. Those are complementary colors. Now, we go back to this. So monochromatic colors are colors is a movie that has the same color but different shades, right? So if we look at these movies here, this all has a yellow color scheme, right? We don't really see any other color except red. Oops. We don't really see any color except yellow, right? No reds, no greens. It's really just yellow. So if you know the prefix mono means one or singular, and then chromatic means color. So if you put these two together, that means monochromatic, right? Have you ever heard of the term monopoly or monopod? Like those are words that mean of one, right? Monopoly. The point of monopoly is to have the number one business, right? If you hear about a monopod, those are typically, I believe, animals that have like one like vertebrae or something like that. So mono typically means, well, it does mean one. So in this movie, in any movies that have a monochromatic color scheme, those are movies that typically have one color or different shades of that same color. So we see here, I believe this is Moonrise Kingdom. That movie by Wes Anderson is strictly all yellow. It's just different shades of yellow. So that's monochromatic. We look at the movie The Matrix, right? That's green. We don't really see any other colors. It's just the green, just different shades, right? We got a dark green here, a light green here, a lighter green here. So these monochromatic are just different shades of the same color, right? And those are intentional. When you see movies that are monochromatic, it's typically for a purpose. It's typically for us to feel like unbothered and undivided and fulfilled. We know we're not getting much. We know we're just getting one type of look. So that's a monochromatic color scheme. Does that make sense? It's movies that have one color but different shades of that same color.
Yes.
Got you. Okay. So that's monochromatic. Next is analogous. So analogous colors are movies. So if a movie has an analogous color scheme, that basically means a movie that has colors, a color scheme that have colors next to each other on the color wheel. So take a look at this color, this color wheel again. So monochromatic, before, like we said, is the same color, just different shades. Analogous are colors next to each other on the color wheel. So yellow and orange will be analogous. Red and purple will be analogous. Blue and green will be analogous. Green and yellow will be analogous. Purple and red will be analogous. Purple and blue will be analogous. Green and blue will be analogous. So any colors that are right next to each other on the color wheel are analogous colors. Yellow and purple are not analogous. They're opposites. Those are complementary. Analogous are colors right next to each other. So yellow and green are analogous. Yellow and orange is also analogous. Orange and red is analogous. Purple and red is also analogous. So those are colors right next to each other. So if we go back here, we see this movie. This movie has the analogous color scheme of purple and blue, right? So this is purple and blue color scheme, right? We don't see any reds or yellow, just purple and blue. In this movie here, orange and yellow, right next to each other on the color wheel, we see orange and yellow. Here, we see blue and purple. Those are analogous colors. Again, down this movie, blue and green, right? Those are right next to each other on the color wheel. So that movies that have analogous color schemes are movies that have this very similar color scheme look. Not exactly the same, it's a sort of different. That's how it's different than monochromatic, because it's not different shades of the same color. It's just similar colors next to each other. So if we look up here, monochromatic are harmonious, undivided, and fulfilling, but analogous are like-minded and kindred. So movies that have similar color schemes, but not similar colors, but not exactly. So that's how monochromatic and analogous are different. Monochromatic are colors with different shades. Analogous are colors next to each other on the color wheel. Makes the movie seem like-minded and kindred. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Got you. Okay, the third one is complementary. Now, we talked about this previously. So red and green are complementary. Orange and blue are complementary. Those are complementary colors. So this movie X-Men, right? We see this orange here and this blue here. Transformers, right? This yellow car and his blue shirt with the blue background. Mad Max Fury Road, we showed this example earlier. That blue sky and the orange sand. So colors that are opposites. So I'm gonna pull up this again. So yellow and purple, again, blue and orange, green and red, colors that are opposites. So that's the most common color scheme in films, is the complementary color scheme, because it's more appealing to the eye. We like contrast, we like paradox, so we like colors that bounce off one another. So you'll see that typically a lot in movies, right? Red and green or blue and orange are common. So that's complementary colors. Lastly is triadic colors. This is a less common color scheme. So triadic colors are, if we go back to the color wheel, are colors that are in threes on the wheel. So yellow, blue, and red. See that 3, 1, 2, 3. That's triadic. Or purple, green, and orange. That's triadic. So it's the three that are that are across from each other. So purple, green, and orange. Yellow, red, and blue. That's triadic. So tricycle, right? 3. So if you ever hear tri, that means 3. So tricycle, triangle, right? And the triadic. So it always means 3 if you ever hear tri. So we go back to this, right? So if we look at triadic, like I said, it's less common, but Superman, right? That's triadic colors: red, yellow, and blue. That's the most common use of triadic colors. And then in this movie, you got yellow, red, and blue again. Triadic. It's the reason for triadic colors are they're vibrant yet balanced and evenly matched. So they're balanced, but it's not as common. It's kind of a lot going on. But complementary is the most common one. So we got monochromatic, analogous, complementary, and triadic. Those are the 4 common color schemes in film. So if you ever watch a movie on Netflix right now, or Hulu, or even just go to the movie theaters, they will have one of these 4. Most likely will have complementary. But yeah, so those are color schemes, right? So those are different color schemes. So next point I want to talk about, then I'm going to show a video, just tie it all together. We have something called discordant colors. So just discordant colors are any deviation from the film's color scheme, often used to refocus viewers' attention to something important, like a place or a thing. So in this movie here, right, the initial color scheme is red and green, but we see blue here and there. We see a blue lamp, the blue shade, blue lamp again, blue wall. Well, that must mean something because it stands out against everything else, right? This blue lamp, out of everything else that's red and green, it must mean something. If we scroll down here, right, we see red pop up randomly. There's red doorknob, there's red jacket, there's red blood, there's red bathroom. That shows us that red is standing out for some reason, right? Why? It's used to represent something. So this must mean something. This blue must mean something, right? Or else it wouldn't be here. If it didn't mean anything, it would make it red to fit everything else. But they wanted it to stand out intentionally for it to mean something. We don't know what unless you saw the movie, but we know it means something about that we need to pay attention to because it just stands out against everything else. Just like this red guy's jacket stands out against his yellow, these red walls stand out against, this red doorknob stands out against all of these colors, right? It's just like, why is that there? It must mean something. So that's what a discordant color is. It's a color that refocuses our attention to represent something important. It could be a person, it could be a place, it could be a thing. So in this photo, right, we see this girl. You can't really see it well, but everything else is black and white, but this little girl's jacket is kind of red. It's kind of faded red, but it's red. And that tells us that she's important for something. Maybe she's the healer, or maybe she's supposed to represent usefulness or innocence for these guys. Who knows? But that red stands out against this black and white. That's a discordant color. Colors that stand out against everything else. And then the last one is associative colors. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's a color that's associated with a person or a place or a thing, right? So it helps us build, the reason they're there is to help us build an emotional reaction or attraction to a color. So in the movie Kill Bill, what is yellow, the color yellow, associated with? It's associated with her outfit, right? So anytime we see her in this yellow, we know, anytime we see yellow, we think of her in this outfit, right? And The Dark Knight, Batman, if we see black, we associate black with Batman, or purple with the Joker. So we can use colors to associate for different people or different things, right? And but you don't always have to associate it with a character. It could be associated to a theme. So I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Godfather, but anytime you see the color orange or an orange, somebody's about to die in the movie. It's just for some reason the director did that. So anytime there's an orange, like a physical, actual fruit orange in the scene, the next scene somebody's about to die. That's just a little fun fact. But they've associated orange with death, right? And up here they've associated purple with the Joker, a character. So you can associate a color with a theme, or you can associate it with or a character. So in this movie, I forgot what this movie is. They associated red and green with obsession. So if you ever see red and green, that means obsession. So colors can be associated with a character. It can be associated with a theme as well. And then last but not least, actually, transitional colors. And that's exactly what it sounds like as well. Transitional colors are colors used to transition. It's used as a transition for something. So it can be used as a transition for a character or a theme. So in the movie, what's this show? What is the name of this show? I forgot. But basically, he starts out with the color green to show that he's safe, kind. But then at the end of the show, he transitions to darker colors, right? That's transitions from green to dark to let us know, okay, he became darker. He became more evil. He became more cruel, right? Same with the movie Up, right? At first, the movie, if you've ever seen the movie Up, this is a perfect example. At first, the movie is bright and lively, showing how they're in love, they're young, you know, they have a family. But then at the end of the scene, it goes black and white to show that she's like sick, they're getting older, not as much fun and passion in a relationship. So we transition from color to black and white to show this contrast, right? And then in Star Wars, he's wearing white initially, then he transitions to black to represent his darkness. So that's what that is, basically. So to recap, and I'm going to show a video to recap, transitional colors are colors that are used as a transition between a character and a theme, right? They can go from good to bad. You know, you can represent good as blue or green, and then bad as dark and black. Then you have associative colors, colors associated with a person or an idea or a theme. And then you have discordant colors, colors that stand out to represent something. So,
above and beyond, I spoke with their director.
So that's what that means.
Go back and more information on
I'm gonna show a video to recap all this, but you got any questions with this? I know we kind of covered a lot.
the judge tomorrow.
No questions? Okay. So I'm gonna show this video. I like this video a lot.
Hey guys, Justice here with TomorrowsFilmmakers.com, the largest online film academy in the world, and today we're going to be talking about cinematic color. Now, if you haven't seen our other videos on cinematic composition, cinematic lighting, and cinematic movement, definitely go check those out, because I think those would be really helpful for you guys to watch and understand more about cinematography. But today I want to talk about something that isn't talked about nearly as much as it should, and that is cinematic color in your storytelling. Now, did you know that you can make an audience feel a certain way just by showing a color? It could be the color of a light, the color of a jacket, a car, even the atmosphere around them. All of these can communicate a message. So in this lesson, we're going to show you how they use color in Hollywood today, and also how you can use color in your projects. But if you enjoy these lessons and you'd like to learn even more, you can check out our full academy at TomorrowsFilmmakers.com. We have over 1,000 training videos and over 100 hours of content on every single filmmaking subject you can imagine, just like this. We have had over 10,000 students join our academy, and they are loving it. And right now we are doing something we have never done before, and we are running an insane sale of only $97 for our lifetime membership to our award-winning online film course. So if you want to take your filmmaking to an entirely new level and learn all about filmmaking from professionals in the industry, click the link in the description and head on over to TomorrowsFilmmakers.com to learn more. But with that being said, how can color tell a story? Or more importantly, what is the purpose of color in your films? You would think that every single color would have a specific feeling that is universally used that way. Orange is nice and warm and gives a homey kind of feel, while blue is very cool and can be used to show danger or some other emotion. And while that may be true to a degree, if you establish a color to mean something at the beginning of a film, the audience will subconsciously feel that way when you show the color again. So if we establish that warm is bad and blue is good, when warm color comes on the screen, the audience will start to feel uneasy without knowing exactly why. And that's the beauty of color in a film. It's not supposed to be noticed. The color in your films is purposeful, but should never be noticed. Now, what do I mean by this? So let's just take a color that has importance in a film. Now, like him or not, M. Night Shyamalan is a master of color in film and has always used the color red to show something significant in his films. If something major is about to happen, the color red is always present. A red doorknob, a red shirt, red balloon. there is significance in the color red.
You would notice that there were little clues along the way, and one of them was with the color red.
We use the color red to indicate anything in the real world that has been tainted by the other world.
So since he's established that color as significant, the rest of the films are surprisingly absent of the color red. Why is that? Because the color red is only used for something significant. If it was just throughout the rest of the movie, the audience would be confused.
Anytime there was red by mistake, I was like, get it out, get it out.
Now, in his fourth film, The Village, he uses the color red to an extreme. There are creatures in the woods that are attracted to the color red, so everyone always wears the color yellow. When you see red, you automatically feel scared and concerned because they're holding the bad color.
This color attracts those we don't speak of. You must bury it.
Now, this is an obvious example because even in the film, they bring attention to a certain color being bad. But what about a film that doesn't bring attention to itself? Let's take two projects about plagues and disease and see how they handle color. Contagion versus Chernobyl. One is a movie and one is a miniseries, but they both deal with sickness, illness, and disease, and I absolutely love both of them. But if we look at Contagion, we can see right at the beginning that anytime someone has the disease, it's a strong yellow color. And not just a nice yellow, but a sick caution tape kind of yellow. If scientists handle the disease, the suits are yellow. If it shows someone coughing, there's a yellow environment. The director establishes right from the beginning that yellow is a bad color. But when someone doesn't have the sickness, it's bluer than anything you have ever seen before. And why is there such a contrast? Because the movie establishes right at the beginning that yellow is dangerous and blue is safe. And once you establish that, you can let the audience know if something is safe or not just by making it a certain color. When the vaccine comes out, the wrist strap that everyone gets after you take the shot is blue, signifying that the vaccine here is safe. If the wrist strap was yellow, we would automatically feel like the vaccine might not work or was even some sort of fake. And all of this emotion is just by the color of the wrist strap. The color of the wrist strap gives you all these emotions because we have established the color from the very beginning. If we take Chernobyl, they established right at the beginning that green is bad. Anytime radiation is present, there is a green tint throughout the entire scene. When our main character thinks everything is fine, it's normal colors, and whenever he reads about the radiation leak, the color immediately turns green, a sickly, gross green. So green is dangerous and blue is safe. And again, once we establish those colors, we can continue to show the audience what is safe and what is not. The hazmat suits are green, signifying radiation. When she visits her husband in the hospital, the curtains are a nice white, but whenever he is dying of radiation, the curtain becomes an eerie green. The sanitation trucks that clean the radiation, they are blue, signifying that this is safe. The captain, who wears green for the entire runtime, has to convince a group of men to move radioactive rocks from the roof. While he's doing that, he's wearing green. When the job is finished, all of a sudden he's wearing blue. This shows the audience that the job they're about to do is dangerous, and then whenever it is done, the danger is now over and it is safe. 3 men are tasked with disposing of radioactive animals, and the truck they drive is blue, which is safe, yet the truck bed with all the radioactive animals is green. This two-tone color of this truck was not by accident. It's showing us that in the cab is safe and whatever is in the back is not. Both of these films communicate danger and safety to the audience by establishing dangerous and safe colors at the beginning and using them throughout the entire runtime. But like I said at the beginning, the thing I love about color in film is that, yes, I'm bringing attention to it, but when you watch it, this is not something that you ever notice. This is a subconscious message communicated to the audience. So when the audience sees someone walk into a green room in Chernobyl, they don't think, there's green in this room, he should get out of there. Instead, they think, it's dangerous, he should get out of there. And the audience doesn't know exactly why they know there is danger in this room, but they just know it isn't safe. And we know it's because the director has established a good and bad color, and we are showing the audience the bad color in this room. This is not something the audience is aware of, but subconsciously this information is fed to the audience and determines exactly how they feel. Now, a franchise like Star Wars is an obvious example of the battle of colors, red versus blue, and we always know who is good and who is bad. In The Force Awakens, J.J. Abrams uses these two colors to visually show the inner struggle of Kylo Ren. As Kylo is trying to figure out what he should do and the decision he needs to make, we as the audience see the struggle visually with red and blue on either side of his face. When he finally makes his decision, we know a decision has been made before anything happens because the blue light fades away and we are left with nothing but red. Again, subconsciously giving the audience the information they need without the audience knowing. And color in film doesn't just have to be good or bad color. You can have a character associated with a color. This character is associated with blue, and this character is always associated with orange. When you see the two mix, you know that these two characters' paths are about to cross. In The Godfather, the color orange is always used to associate death. Not red, not blue, but orange. So before someone dies, the color orange is always present. And sometimes it's an overall hue to the scene, and sometimes it's more subtle, like actual oranges spilling across the frame whenever someone dies. In Breaking Bad, our main character, Walt, is always wearing bright colors at the beginning of the show. But towards the end of the show, as Walt starts to become more and more wicked, his colors start to get darker and darker. And in a very famous scene where he reveals the true nature to his wife and how dangerous he really is, he removes his red overshirt to reveal an even darker red undershirt. A visual representation of the darkness hiding underneath his already dark exterior. And all we have done is change the color of his clothing. In the movie Her, when our main character falls in love with an operating system named Samantha, the color red is always used to represent their relationship. Samantha is the color red, and when Theodore is around her or falling in love with her, he is wearing red or there is red around him. This represents that this operating system that he is in love with is affecting every part of his life and he's not able to get away from it. When he finally realizes that many people are also experiencing what he is experiencing, we start to see others with that same red in their clothing. And when Theodore finally does get rid of Samantha, red is now absent from his life, and not only does he feel free, but we as the audience feels free. Red represents Samantha, and when our character is free from her, red is gone. But what about not just a certain color in clothing, but the absence of color, or more, the absence of saturation in clothing? In Secret Window, our main character and his wife are going through a terrible divorce, and they have lost all joy in life. So every piece of clothing that they have is faded and void of color. When they stand next to someone else, they stand out because their clothes are so faded. And this was done on purpose.
Working with the color, the mid-tone color, kind of color that they were very strong, but they fade down like under the sun. It's a kind of twilight zone. Everything is loose, everything is fade, and compared to the flashback and compared to the other character, where the color is more bright, more colorful, more happy.
You can even take color a step further and have a certain color represent something our main character is searching for. A well-known example is in Blade Runner 2049. Denis Villeneuve has stated that the color yellow represents the truth our main character is looking for. And the color yellow becomes more and more frequent as our character comes closer to the truth. From a yellow flower to a small light in another room, or a small yellow light in the room where he is discovering more truth. And towards the end of the film, when he finally finds what he's looking for, the entire scene is yellow, representing that he has finally found the truth he was searching for throughout the entire film. So as you can see, color is used in storytelling all the time, and it doesn't just need to be an overall wash of the image. It can be a specific item, a light through a window, an article of clothing, or even the absence of color in clothing. And to use color in your films is very simple. Just establish the color scheme at the beginning of the film and carry that throughout the entire project. If you choose blue as a bad color, then have your villain wear some sort of blue, or maybe when something bad happens, there's a blue light in the background. Establish the color at the beginning of the film, and then you are able to subconsciously make the audience feel a certain way without saying anything and without the audience even knowing about it. So I hope that you guys have really enjoyed this video and has helped you guys out on how to use color in your films to communicate to the audience. If you'd like to learn every single aspect of filmmaking, you can check out our full account.
Alright, so that's a video I like because it really shows how you can use color in a film subconsciously. And yeah, like that's it's kind of, excuse me. That kind of summed up everything I was talking about. Now let's get into CapCut and let's see how we can actually make colors show up. So I'm gonna stop sharing. So let's do some color grading on a quick clip. So
it's not showing our succession rate, and that makes But I mean, that's definitely true. But I feel like that's why it's also like pushing for this commercial, because the commercial or the marketing videos that highlights because we got like some of the participants in it, so it's like showing them saying like, hey, this is a good program. But I mean, we do want to back up for when they actually show. I don't want to sell them no dream.
Yeah, I mean commercials are great. I just also know that all the groups,
alright. So
grassroots,
let me bring in a clip.
Politicking is it's gonna help us as well. And so I was listening to him, I was like, have you guys reached out to the churches in the neighborhood to be added to the announcements or be able to come and speak one time, one Sunday, things like that, or when the churches have, church, there's a lot of big churches out here in the suburbs, and they have community events all the time. Are we on their listserv so we can go and have a table with us, and we can be there when they are doing their community outreach and tell more people about our program.
So I had a clip in here.
Some more donors and stuff like that.
have a. I could use that. Oh, here we go. Okay. So I'm gonna use this. So I don't know if you remember when I talked about how when you shoot cinematic videos, like for movies, they are grayscale. So these colors obviously aren't that saturated. They're not colorful at all. You can see it has like a gray tint. This is not what we would want. We want something that looks like movie-like, more cinematic. And so the way to do that is first bring in your clip that you want. So once you got your clip, you can take it and drag it in. So I'm gonna mute this for now just because we don't need the audio. So we see that this video is again grayscale, so let's just change it up, add some color to it. So the thing about color is you want to make sure, like I talked about, intention. What is the intention behind the color that you want? So for me personally, this is in the shot in the desert kind of. I was in Utah, I believe. So, but this particular part was in the desert. So I kind of want to have it like that Mad Max theme where it's like a brown or orange desert with the blue sky complementing it. So that orange and blue complementary color scheme, that'd be perfect for this shot. So that's what I want. I want that color complementary with that orange and blue. So I'm going to have this. So first thing you want to do is once you have your clip, you want to go over to adjustments. And then once you find adjustments, you can scroll down and you have all these color tabs, right? So you have temperature, tint, saturation, exposure, contrast, highlight, shadow, white, black, and brilliance. So you can use these and change the color scheme that you want. So what I usually do is, and we talked about saturation, right? That's just the intensity of the color. And we also talked about value, which is exposure, lightness, and brightness. So, what I would do is I would start from the top and then scroll down. So I would just work my way over here and start to color it. So here, like I said, I want that orange and blue. So I'm gonna probably put this more to the orange side, temperature. Then let's go to our tint. I would just play with what we have. Saturation, maybe bring it up a bit. Boom. Our exposure. Increase contrast. Bring that up. So we already starting to see how it's transitioning. Shadow. And then maybe decrease our white. And you see I'm just going down and making something that looks good. And there's no right or wrong. You just do what you think looks best for your video. And let's see. Now I'm going to adjust my tint a bit. There we go. Boom. So that already looks good. And you could stop there if you wanted to. So you can see how we went from boom to boom. Huge difference, right? This looks a lot better. We see those oranges. We see that blue sky complementing it. But you can also get a little more advanced. And over here, we have basic, then we have HSL. So this is the last one I'll talk about before we kind of break out. But HSL is cool because you get to select a certain color and change the intensity and brightness of it. So for example, let's say I don't want to change everything. Let's say I just want to make my blue brighter. Well, I just click blue and now I can change only the blues. See, it doesn't change my oranges. Only thing it changes the things that are blue in the shot. I could also change my tint. Right, boom. Right, I could change my lightness, any of that. So now I'm just changing that selected color. So if I wanted to change my rocks, I could do orange. It's more orange. So again, this will change my rocks. It'll leave my sky alone, but change everything that's orange. So boom, you can see the orange is getting a little bit more saturated. You can also change the tint. I think I like the more orange. And then we could do red and see what that looks like. Yeah, I like it more red. Yeah. And so there we go. A lot better. Look at that. And this is something I just filmed on my own. I did use a camera, but you can use your phone and just do some color grading. But you can see the difference, right? Going from boom to boom. Big difference. So there are a few more elements we can change, like the curves, the color wheel, and the mask. Curves are basically certain. So for this one, this is the Luma curve. So this basically changes the shadows. And the thing about color grading is just experiment, see what looks good, and just play around. That's the best way to learn. Like, you can listen to me all day, listen to my videos, but I would just play around and see what you get. And so curves give you more flexibility with adjusting colors. So for example, this is red, so I can increase my red tint if I wanted to, or I can decrease it. So you can do green as well. Bring your greens out or leave it out. But I don't play with curves too much, but you can. It gives you more flexibility with certain things. Next is the color wheel, so you can play with the shadow. So if you click shadow, see, I also have the middle tone. Then you got the highlight. And these are all just secondary color schemes you can adjust to make your video more vibrant or not. And some of these are too extreme. I don't play with them too much, but this is more advanced color grading. But it's up to you. And then masks, we'll save masks for later. But essentially a mask, you can draw out certain sections and just adjust the section that you mask out. So let's say I mask out the sky, like put a mask around the sky. I could just change the color of the sky. So it's similar to selective color, but instead of a certain color, you color grade a certain section. So it gives you more flexibility and more versatility with adjusting your colors. So that's essentially color grading in CapCut. And I kind of want to bring in another clip. I'm going to bring in one more.
It's a platform.
And you need a street campaign, which is what I was telling you.
Alright, so that's that one. So I'm going to do this one. Alright. So the cool thing is you can copy and paste as well. So let's say I'll drag. So this is just like this is during sunset in Sedona, Arizona. So let's say I like this and I want to just see how it looks. I can actually copy and paste. I love this actually, but I could copy and paste this look if I wanted to. So if I wanted to, I can right click, copy attributes, go to this one, right click, and then paste attributes. Press OK. Boom. So now we can get that same color scheme for this, which looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. But I kind of want to start from scratch. So I'm going to create my own color palette for this. So again, click your video, go up to adjustment, go to basic, and just start playing with it. Think about what look you want. I think I want to go for that sunset look. So playing with different aspects.
I just say most people, most people need
contrast.
They have people who work on just that piece and then knows that's on the front line. They don't have a clue what all it is unless they, just in the know and do it. But
when I call, I'm like, can I speak to the supervisor or the director of the program to, mix it with different front office people, whatever you do. I don't know. Right.
And yeah, that looks good. I like that.
Nobody's trying to call, nobody to get to talk to. And I guess like next time you get over her, they're talking I'm like, this is.
So yeah, that's color grading in CapCut for the most part. A lot of just experiment, and that's how I learned. I learned through just experimentation, playing stuff, looking at videos similar to this one, and just playing with the software. So I recommend doing that. If you have some footage, you can record something on your iPhone and just bring it in and just edit it. So you don't need any professional camera. You just need to just have a phone and then just upload and you're good. So so that's essentially color grading in CapCut. We'll do a little bit more, and there's actually a way to copy and paste certain colors from movies that you like. So let's say you like the Batman movie, like Star Wars, let's say, or Avengers, right? Popular movie. If you like that color grade, there is a way to take that look and implement it on your own video. So you can take certain colors from certain movies and put it on your own video and have it like that. So that's definitely an option. But we'll go more into that later. But yeah. All right. All right, Gabrielle, that's about it for today. Stay on for Esports and the Law at 6. And then, if there's no questions or anything, I will see you next week, and have a good rest of your week.
pronounce industry, and we're trying to create that strong foundation. And so long term, we will have more and more students involved in esports, and we know that it could. Some funding that we continue this growth, obviously, but at the collegiate level, it is important that we're now having more and more professors involved, retaining the knowledge, understanding the game, and building it up for the future of the sport. So, we're going to talk about some of the trends in esports from 2025. Going into, it seemed like, you know, the gaming industry was kind of stagnant. Other than kind of our big names like League of Legends, Valorant, and Fortnite, where they were booming, we didn't see and it's free to play, and we have seen an unprecedented amount of praise and success in the introduction of this game recently, right? There has been positive response to the character art. There has been a positive response to the fact that there was, you know, not a lot of bugs or exploits as the game was launched. We were able to kind of play more seamlessly. Have you played Marvel Rivals, Elijah?
I think I did for a little bit, and it was an okay game to play.
It was an okay game to play. Well, it is.
I haven't got the full experience yet.
Okay. Well, at this point in time, right now, it is receiving rave reviews. So we can kind of take a quick look into Marvel Rivals and see kind of what's all the rave about. Let me see. We'll watch a short video. Of its launch trailer, in case you haven't had the opportunity to see it. Let's see. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Trapping all those fighting souls, but yet across the world I see you standing in my way. And remember the time, the place we used to fight, like the sun and moon and the time wonder. Seven elected and then we were friends. Like a falling shadows looming, and yes, that's it. I never need to seek you out. Yours and now one last reunion. Break the chains, find your way, come on, fight me. Do
Now, how cool was that? I thought that was pretty cool. So, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, the word on the street is that they believe, we're thinking that maybe this video game can become a competitive esports title in 2025. And that is one prediction for 2025. We also have user-generated content, which was on the rise in 2024. And user-generated content used to be the exclusive province of Roblox, where users could create their own mini games and charge others Robux to play them, creating a nice little economy kind of within the game. Now, Fortnite has launched Fortnite Creative Mode several years ago, was introduced in the Unreal Engine for Fortnite in 2023, and that really kind of opened up the floodgates for that kind of user-generated content within Fortnite. Roblox currently has around 90 million daily active users, and Fortnite has 60 million. The bulk of those users are Generation Z, Gen Z, and Gen Alpha, who grew up with the games and very interested in playing with the concept of user-generated content. So we believe, at least, I'm sorry?
If it's total business content, sometimes it ain't easy, or you have to figure out how it's going to go out.
You do. Did you know that there were this many users playing Fortnite? 60 million daily users, or 90 million daily active users that play Roblox?
Right.
That's a whole lot.
Yes.
But hey, because of this kind of user-generated content, we believe that many brands are looking to launch user-generated content within Roblox or Fortnite, including the one and only Snoop Dogg, Calvin Broadus. Snoop Dogg and his son Cordell launched Snoop Dogg Red versus Blue, which is a creative content within Fortnite in 2024, and it had great success. Have you seen that? No? Do you know who Snoop Dogg is?
Wait. Oh, wait, I know Snoop Dogg.
The singer?
That's right. He used to be a famous iconic rapper.
Absolutely.
And don't get me wrong, I just couldn't with this. Are you taking that what I was thinking of at the moment?
What?
On this one episode of ABC's game show, Celebrity Family Feud.
Oh.
And he could think of it. I didn't know horse.
Oh, I remember. I actually remember that. How funny.
Yeah.
How
Pie and what the heck did you say?
Yeah.
Pie and the horse. Oh,
Pie and the horse.
Too funny. No wonder this show keeps playing on ABC.
Yeah. Who on earth thought that that's what he would say, right? Oh my gosh. But he created kind of this content within Fortnite, and it was very extremely successful. Yeah, and it was a collaboration with Death Row Records, which is the Death Row Games.
And, don't get me wrong, he had a game show called The Joker's Wild that used to be on TBS.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
So there is, with this kind of content, this user generated content, being so successful in the past, especially in 2024, seeing Snoop Dogg and his son being able to create that content and have this partnership with Fortnite. We believe that long term, another prediction was that a long term we'll see a significant amount of, if you want to do that, anyone who wants to kind of engage in this user generated content definitely is going to have their legal framework together in order to avoid intellectual property violations. But we might see an uptick in that kind of content. I'll show you really briefly what Snoop Dogg's content looked like, the trailer for his show. Here we go, which is pretty cool. It's a very short. Here we go. Pretty cool, pretty cool. What else do we have? So prediction number 3 is that the integration of artificial intelligence. Now, we've seen how artificial intelligence has become very widespread, used very widely in almost every aspect of the world today. And so we can only imagine how its introduction into gaming is going to make the gaming industry more competitive, interesting, popular, right? We know that artificial intelligence or AI can be used in many, many ways in games. Generating content is one of the obvious ways, but also using it to learn players' behaviors and make games progressively more difficult. We can also do that, right? There have been some complaints. We've noticed there were complaints in past of publishers using learning technologies to kind of progressively increase the difficulty levels and drive players toward kind of purchasing downloadable content. And EA owns a patent for technology called dynamic difficulty adjustment that some players in FIFA alleged in 2021 was used in the game to influence kind of that downloadable content purchases. But we want to look out for that one if we want to avoid that, but we do want to make games more interesting and more popular and even sometimes more difficult. So artificial intelligence may be a way for us to do that as we continue to use it in different ways in video games. Although there was an allegation against EA, Electronic Arts quickly came out with a statement that denied that the technology was ever used in FIFA, Madden, or NHL, and never ever will be. Who else? Warner Brothers has a patent on the Nemesis AI system, and that was found in 2014 in the Lord of the Rings game. Have you played that game before?
I haven't played any of the Lord of the Rings games.
You haven't? Okay, no worries. We'll do a little, I'll show a little videos quickly, briefly, and you can see what it looks like.
Okay.
But we see here how artificial intelligence has been used at least since 2014 through in the Lord of the Rings game, and we know that Warner Brothers still has a patent on that, and patents last. Do you remember how long patents last? 20 years.
20 years.
2020.
Okay.
So I'll show a brief video about what it looks like. But the prediction for 2025 is that we'll continue to see kind of these types of artificial intelligence technologies creep into video games, really, whether we want to or not, to advance our technologies, right? I'm going to show you a little bit about the Nemesis AI system, what that looks like. What is this? Let's see. I'll show you a short video. Here we go. Now we'll talk about the patent that Warner Brothers was able to secure and why it's so important.
We're in charge now. Anyone have a problem with that?
Ow! Does anyone have a problem with that?
We're in charge now. Anyone have a problem with that?
Ow! Does anyone have a problem with that?
The Orcs' numbers have swelled beyond count. They're preparing for another push.
No one has seen your father since the last battle. I have men looking for him. devilry is this?
The Witch King himself comes to negotiate.
My father's blade.
My orcs help your journey. Send out the Ranger of the Black Gate to die at the hands of my champion. And upon his defeat, your leader will be returned. Refuse, and all that is flesh shall suffer. I come for you, Town of Gondor.
You understand?
That the Uruks are incapable of mercy? That my father may already be dead?
Ignore their taunts. We mustn't allow them.
The Uruks love spectacle. If we can distract them in the arena, we can sneak into their camp and find my father. Can I ask this of you?
Give them a show to remember.
Try not to kill him too quickly.
They seem to like their champion's chances. And it must be said, he has size on his side.
True, but you and I have him outnumbered.
Welcome to the arena, man swine. The crowd screams for bloody spectacle, and you will give it to them. Scourge! What was that? What did you hope to? Kill the man! I have failed the Dark Lord, but his designs are unaltered. He has plans for your city, man-filth, and plans indeed for you.
If there's one gameplay innovation that I think deserves another look, it's the Nemesis system, which first appeared in the 2014 game Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor. At its most basic, it's a villain generator, capable of populating Mordor with a handful of procedurally generated bad guys. Each one has its own name, look, gameplay traits, and personality, which is revealed in taunting one-liners before combat.
I wonder which of us will kill you first!
But at its best, and especially so in the sequel Shadow of War, it's a full-on story generator, which is able to spin unique and highly personal narratives from your relationships with these orcs. It's a pretty incredible feat of design and engineering. We've seen story generation stuff in games like RimWorld and Crusader Kings, but in a real-time action game with blockbuster graphics, it's unheard of. It's also something I've talked about a number of times on this channel, but I've never really dug into the specifics of how it works. To be honest, I've always been intimidated by the sheer complexity of the thing. That is, until now. It's about time I finally gave it a go. So, hi, I'm Mark Brown, this is Game Maker's Toolkit, and here's how the Nemesis system creates stories. A quick note before I start. To save time and make things easier, I'm mostly going to talk about these two games as a single entity, which I'll just call Mordor. It's worth noting that Shadow of War makes massive changes and improvements to the system, but the broad strokes do apply to both games. If I had to choose an analogy for the way Mordor tells stories, I'd go with improvisational theatre, where unscripted stories spontaneously evolve as the performance goes on, and especially the rule yes and, which is about always accepting your partner's prompt and building on it. And that's exactly how it works in Mordor. The player does something, the game recognizes it, and builds on it. So you might run away from a battle with an orc captain to save your skin and get called a coward in a future encounter.
Not letting you run this time. Oh, he's gonna finish it.
Or you might put a spy into the enemy's ranks, only for the next orc you meet to say,
We know you planted a spy. Don't know who he is yet, but we'll just torture maggots until we find him.
The way this works is that the game is always secretly cataloguing your interactions with the game, and the orcs can then reference this list in order to choose the most interesting line of dialogue at the start of your next encounter. And that's really clever, because it means the way you communicate to the game, the way you make your improvisational suggestions, is through the most basic actions of play. Things like kill, flee, injure, heal, or gather intel. The things you're doing anyway in order to play the game get used by the Nemesis system as a jumping off point for the narrative. But this can also go the other way, with the orcs giving prompts, and hopefully the player will take the bait and build on the story themselves. Take this Olog called Arcaro, who beat me to a pulp, bent down, picked up my sword, and broke it.
You think this hurts me? No!
I guess I'll be tracking him down. Okay, so that's the basics. But this left developer Monolith Productions with a problem. In a game that's all about death and violence, how do you make these stories last longer than a single encounter? You can't have improv if your partner is dead, after all. The solution was to find ways for an encounter to end that don't involve death. So, for one, the player is always able to run away from a battle, and is often encouraged to do so because it's difficult to recover health in the middle of combat. Some orcs also retreat when their life is in danger. Also, right at the moment of death, it's possible for the encounter to go a very different way.
I can't go down like this! I won't go down like this!
A downed orc might defy death and have a tricky escape. Or if the player is about to die, the orc might decide to just humiliate them and walk away. Take Marku, a wiry little archer who keeps downing me with his poisonous arrows, but always stops short of finishing the job.
Get up, man filth. I want a victory, not a mercy killing. It'll be too easy to kill you like this. Come on, show me some pride of Gondor or whatever you men are always going on about.
But even if Talion does actually die, that's not the end. In almost every game, the player's death is a non-canonical error that gets erased when you rewind to a previous save point. It's rare to find games where the player's demise is actually weaved into the narrative in an interesting way. But in Mordor, protagonist Talion is a grave walker, a man stuck between life and death, which gives him the power to endlessly come back to life, like someone respawning in a multiplayer match. And this allows for a key narrative trope: revenge.
I know why you want to kill me. Revenge! Revenge for sword!
Well, he won't be a problem anymore. Monolith says it was inspired by the Burnout games, where you can get wrecked by rival racers and then you're dropped straight back onto the track so you can hunt down that car and enact some sweet justice. It's only because crashing is not considered a failure in Burnout that this sort of story can happen. The studio was also inspired by the kill cam in Call of Duty games, where you get to see the person who just killed you and then can respawn into the map and hunt them down. In fact, a lot of Mordor's design was about trying to replicate multiplayer relatedness with computer-controlled characters. And it's not just Talion who can respawn. Every enemy you slay has a small chance to cheat death and reappear later in the game, perhaps with injuries, scars, and prosthetics, which is another chance for the game to reflect the player's actions back on them. Like, for example, maybe I was being a bit hasty when I said Arcaro the Swordbreaker wouldn't be a problem, because half an hour later, look who showed up in the middle of a fight.
I should thank you. Whatever magics you used when you took my head will not allow me to die. Getting killed by you was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Gulp. Put all of this together, plus some other possible outcomes that I'll speak about later, and we can see that there's many ways for the relationship between Talion and an orc to go forward, from humiliation to fleeing to cheating death. And so, whatever way the encounter ends, every time you meet this orc again, the process repeats, but now with a memory of your previous run-ins to reference and build the story further. Something else happens when an enemy kills you. They level up, they gain new strengths and shed old weaknesses, they get emboldened, and they often challenge a bigger orc for their position. You see, it would get boring if you just kept meeting the same orcs again and again without any change or growth in the relationship. So the Nemesis system needs some kind of framework for these stories to grow on. And in Mordor, Monolith used one that's familiar and easily understandable to anyone who's worked in a job or been in a prison gang: the hierarchy. In Shadow of War, every orc exists in a top-down organization of Overlord, a bunch of war chiefs, the captains, and the soldiers, who are just typical disposable NPC enemies. Though if they kill you, they have every chance of getting promoted to captain themselves. Killing Talion can make the enemy rise up through the ranks, but if you shame a war chief, they'll get demoted back down to captain. And it's not all about Talion. Orcs are given randomly generated missions that automatically resolve after a certain amount of time and can lead to promotion, demotion, and death, causing the balance of power to organically shift as you play. So if Talion's immortal nature lends itself to stories of vengeance, the hierarchical framework leads to different story tropes, such as fall from grace and rags to riches. Like in my game, how Marku, the humiliating orc captain, decided to finally finish the job and use his newfound status to overthrow the Overlord for top position. Which is quite the move up. That's like me getting 1 million subscribers and then submitting my resume to become the CEO of YouTube. But it also means that Marku is now absolutely untouchable unless I lead a full-on assault of his heavily guarded fortress. The orcs can also have other relationships, like a captain being a bodyguard to a war chief, or one orc being a devoted blood brother to another.
I will see my blood brother slain by such a useless little tark!
And later in the game, you get a chance to make your own relationships by recruiting orcs onto your side of the war. So after Marku became Overlord, I had an idea. No matter how many times I killed Arcaro the Stitch, he kept coming back, this time with a massive iron helmet holding his head together.
Is that surprise I see on your face? Did you really think you killed me? Don't make me laugh. It may tear my stitches.
And it was at this point that I realized that me and the Stitch have more in common than I first thought. We're two immortal souls, trapped in an endless battle of death and respawning. And so if I'm going to build an army to take down Marku the Humiliator, perhaps we should actually work together.
I swear allegiance to you.
Now, I'll admit that the relationship between Talion and his followers isn't quite as well defined as Talion and his rivals. It is, after all, called the Nemesis system. So a recruited captain will effectively leave the map and may have very little interaction with Talion from that point onwards. It can be as much of an endpoint as the orc's death. But there are some interesting possibilities. A recruit may decide to betray you and return to the enemy's side. You might install a spy in the enemy's ranks, only for him to be found out and executed. And a favoured follower might show up in a clutch moment to save you from certain death.
Death cannot take you today. just as it cannot take me.
Thanks, buddy. Whatever the case, these different relationships help flesh out stories because they force the narrative to grow beyond simple one-on-one tales between Talion and a single orc. Instead, it creates a weaving matrix of different relationships and dependencies that can lead to more exciting stories. So hopefully you can now see why I make the link between Mordor and improv. In most video game stories, the narrative is entirely predetermined. Even those games with branching paths and multiple endings are all plotted out ahead of time, like a choose-your-own-adventure book. The player then navigates their way through this scripted story. But in Mordor, the story evolves unpredictably, because it's entirely based on your interactions with these orcs. It's constructed at runtime, encounter by encounter, using your interactions as narrative brickwork. Systems like cheating death and humiliation allow the stories to be longer. The hierarchy allows the cast of characters to grow and change. And relationships between the different orcs creates a web of interlocking characters. But even though we've now got a pretty solid system that allows for stories to happen, how does Monolith make sure that those stories are actually any good? First, it's important that you can actually remember and distinguish between these different orcs. You'll encounter around 100 captains over the course of a game, and so it's vitally important that the player is able to keep track of their relationships with the key players. An orc might remember you, but you don't always remember them. To make this work, the orcs need to have really strong personalities. They need to be visually interesting and have unique traits, like the singer.
I sing this song with all my breath. Take heed, for this interlude ends with your death.
Or the poet.
Your fate just went from bad to worse. You face an orc who speaks in verse.
Or the obsessed.
Oh, I don't think I've ever seen such a beautiful corpse. This is a corpse you could love and love and love.
These orcs reference their unique trait constantly to keep it memorable. So you might not remember his name, but you will remember that guy who keeps talking about branding. And to keep it consistent, the game defines the orc's identity first, and then makes everything else support that, such as the weapon it uses, the outfit it wears, the choices it makes in combat, and even its mannerisms, like this goddamn singing orc who constantly says, "Let's sing!" Because while Mordor is highly systemic and makes significant use of procedural generation, there's still a lot of carefully handcrafted content in there which helps certain orcs become highly memorable characters. The Stitch, after all, is just a handcrafted character who may appear when an Olog cheats death. But the Stitch could be a captain, a war chief, a spy, a follower, or any other role. There are simply hundreds of voice lines for each orc to account for every eventuality. Second, the game needs to create strong, emotional connections to these orcs. They're not just characters, they're rivals and nemeses. This connection is usually forged when you die. The kill animations are aggressive and painful. The orc insults you with taunts after your death, and we see the orc celebrating your demise and being rewarded with a promotion. They may even change their name to denote the way they murdered you. If this isn't enough, you're encouraged to get revenge for gameplay purposes, because killing an orc who murdered you leads to way better loot. Now, these stories can be filled with really cool moments. Things like an orc cheating death, repeatedly humiliating you, betraying your trust, or becoming a deranged, babbling weirdo. These can be really powerful bits of narrative, but only when they're rare occurrences. If it happens over and over, it becomes rote, predictable, and just another gameplay mechanic. So these events are designed to be uncommon. According to Monolith, in a typical playthrough of Shadow of War, the vast majority of orcs will never cheat death, meaning that these truly nemesis-style relationships feel rare and memorable. To make this happen, well, almost everything in Mordor has a random chance to occur. If you're downed, there's an invisible die roll to see if a follower orc will save your life. And simply put, all of the most surprising interactions are given an incredibly low chance of ever happening. And going further, some events, like certain transformations, can only happen once and then are locked from ever happening again in that playthrough, to ensure that those moments are truly surprising. Ideally, we want these rare occurrences to happen to the orcs we actually know and remember. So, you need to know about a secret statistic that every orc carries with them, the player interaction score, which ticks up every time you re-encounter the same orc. The higher the PIS, the more likely that the orc will cheat death, survive in battles with other orcs, and more. And so, in play, it means that the orcs you know the best, the ones who have killed you multiple times or have shown up again and again, are the ones most likely to stick around and to have the key roles in the story going forward. Of course, it wouldn't be good if an orc cheated death, but spawned in some obscure part of the map and you never saw them again. So to make sure those cast members stay relevant, Monolith cheats with how orcs spawn and will allow a key rival or nemesis to teleport in at the most inopportune moment. Orcs can even travel between the different regions in rare circumstances, so characters you had a strong relationship with in one part of the game will come back in another. There are even more secret stats behind the scenes to help drive drama and bring balance to stories. For example, if you just kill or recruit every orc you encounter, it's likely that your story is getting a bit one note. So, design director Bob Roberts says, "That's a knob we can turn. If you're doing too well, maybe somebody should piss you off and betray you and give you a revenge target to go after." Though I'm not sure how aggressive this balancing is. There were times when I had to manually increase the difficulty level because the game was just too easy and my stories were becoming stagnant. And finally, Monolith knows when to step back. Ultimately, much of
I know that was a lot of content, Elijah, huh? But this is an example of how AI and Nemesis system works. Some of the, pros and cons, how we may appreciate the storyline, but again, some simple adjustments or manual adjustments were still required in order to fully enjoy the system to ensure that you were getting stories that you were both interested in and that you were more and more interested in. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense.
Okay.
Hello. What's going on, Elijah?
Oh, hey, Aramis.
Hey, what's going on? TVs, video game consoles. From there, my mom put me in classes learning about IT, just the basic forms of it. Put me in a bunch of workshops as I was getting older in my teenage years. Um, from there, I went to school for it, earned the Marine Valley Community College, got my certificates in my degree, and my I'm working on my CompTIA Plus cert right now, so I should be having that. Just a lot of money, but it's a very important thing to have. But I've been in the IT field for, I want to say, 15 plus, 20 plus years. I'm 36, I'm 37, I'll be 38 this year. So I've been in the IT field for a very, very long time. Um, I'm I do IT help desk. I'm an IT technician, so I do hardware, software fixes. I also have my own side business, Singleton Tech Services, where I pretty much fix people's computers, laptops. I build PCs. So you want a custom PLC, you had to buy the parts, but I will build it for you and everything and get that all set up. I also, look at like people's phones. I also look at sometimes consoles, if I can fix it. Um, and I also build servers. I have also started building servers, I want to say 2, 3 years ago. Building home servers for people. I tell them what they need, what they can get, and then I set them up from there. So I definitely know about what I'm talking about, the IT. I'm also the IT administrator for Click Services. So that's my other title that I have here, as along with being the instructor for the music production, IT fundamentals, and streaming coach. I'm also the IT specialist, IT administrator here at Click. But pretty much what this class is going to help you is to get you started on the IT field. It's going to get you started to understand what IT is and how you can um, use this to start your career. So if you want to do IT technician help desk, this class will definitely help you with that. If you want to do something like coding, same thing. If you even want to do data analyst, which is still IT, right? So learning things like SQLs and really understanding Excel spreadsheets and getting yourself in that, this will help you start that path. So this is kind of like just beginning path, and just choose your adventure after this class. So let's go ahead and get started with IT terminology. So let's go ahead and get started with IT terminology. So right here I have a list. If you can write it down, Elijah, this list. If you can write it down. If not, then I can email it to you. So just send me your email, and then I will email you this list. These are just some of the words that we're going to go after over the course of this class today. And tomorrow, I mean not tomorrow, but next week we're going to do part 2 and some other things. But let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing you have is the CPU, or your central processing unit. Your CPU is a piece of computer hardware that retrieves and stores and processes and execute instructions. So think of the CPU as the brains of the computer. So your CPU, or your central processing unit, specifically is just this. It would be your processor, right? So just do Intel, the i7, right? I'm sorry, not 17, but i7, right? This would be your processor. If you want a better picture, this right here. These right here are processors, right? Your processor is kind of like the brain. It get all the information from the other parts of the computer, it stores it, it processes the information and put it back out so it can execute whatever process that it needs to process, right? So for example, you doing something that's open in Chrome. The minute you hit the Chrome icon, it's gonna the RAM and everything is gonna send everything to the processor, the CPU. It's gonna store it, it's gonna retrieve it, it's gonna process that information, execute it, and send it back out so it can open Chrome, right? So if I wanted to open something like my file explorer, boom, right? The processor just, the minute I clicked on there, it sent information to the processor. It went ahead and processed that information. It executed that command that I wanted to do, and it opened up my file explorer. Right, that's how that works. Right, your CPU is very important. You can also have different types of CPUs. Right, so this right here is an Intel. It's an i7 core, so it has 7 cores. You also have like so many threads within a processor. You also can have something like a Xeon processor, right? So your Xeon processor are more so used for, there we go. Your Xeon processors are more so used for servers, right? Deep, because they have so many cores. Like this is a 20-core processor right here, so many threads, just because it's doing so many things, right? Servers can do so many things. It can store information that allows you to store information on the server that you can easily access if you have the right information. Also, you can do things like virtualization, where you can set up a virtualization. So many of them where It has like an environment for Windows where you can go and play in it, or you can legit use it to access certain information that you can only access if you was on site. Let's say you needed to go out of state for a conference or something, and the job gave you the information to access the server, the virtualization server, so you can access whatever information you needed from whatever files. You would need a processor like this. So you have Intel, and then you also have AMD. Um, the Ryzen series is very, very good. The Ryzen 5, the Ryzen 7, the Ryzen 9, the Threadripper, which is pretty much the equivalent of the Intel Xeon processors. Very, very important, but you would definitely need this to start your PC. After that, you would have something like your GPU, right? Your graphics processing unit, right? Or better yet, you would know it as a graphics card. So a GPU or a graphics processing unit is a piece of computer hardware that runs graphics on a device, right? Well, your graphics card, right? So we all know about graphics card, right? You know about the NVIDIA, your 3080s, your 4090s stuff, and not a new one. I think it's like the 50 series, like the 5070, 5080 series, right? Or you can go Team Red AMD, and you can get the Radeon 5700 XT. I think that's what they have right now, the 5700 XT, or the old school RX 580 graphics cards, right? And you have the new kids on the block, Intel, right? Intel now have dedicated graphics cards, the Arc series, right? You got the B570s, the B580s, really good graphics cards, very, very affordable, right? Really good in that budget territory. Same thing with AMD, but you get more bang for your buck if you went with the AMD. NVIDIA, still pretty much the kings of graphics card for the most part. Or I would say they have more competition now. They definitely have more competition. I'm not gonna say they're the king, they're still at the top, but definitely AMD has something to say. If you want to see a picture of a graphics card, let's go to NVIDIA 3070, right? This is a graphics card right here. So you would just plug that into your motherboard, into the slots, the PCIe slots, right? You would plug that in the PCIe slot. You would plug a cord from your power supply into the graphics card, and this is what will allow you to see your PC, right? Like this will allow you to see your PC to interact with it and also play games at very, very high levels of graphic levels, right? So something like a 3070 can get you 1080p, maybe even 1440p, depending on what game you're getting. If you get the higher end models, of course, so like the 4080s and not the 550 series, you can probably do some 4K game if you have the right amount of RAM, along with the right CPU, the processor, right? You need all of them things working in cohesion to get the most power you could out of your graphics card, right? So you just can't go and buy a 50 series graphics card or the 5700 XT and expect to get 4K gaming. No, you have to really do your research. You need to get the right amount of RAM, right? And you also need to get the right amount of RAM, but the right speed of that RAM. And then you also need to get the right um, CPU, right? So for something like a 500 series, you would need something like, I would say, the i7K, the i7K series, where you can overclock. And then for the RAM, 32 gigs of RAM, maybe 64 gigs of RAM at a very high speed, like 33 megahertz speed, which is very, very fast RAM, GDDR6, very, very fast RAM. So that would get you to 4K, things like that. A lot of money, but this is why PC building is, it's easy once you understand it, but it's definitely fun, right? Because it's a lot of mix and match, right? You may not get 4K, but you can get something like 2K. You can get 1440p, 120 hertz, right? Which is 120 frames per second. But all that also depends on your graphics card with other factors, right? But that would be your GPU. Now, after that, the terminology would go to IT, or information technology, right? It's just the development and the use of computer system, network to store and manage or retrieve information, right? So information technology is pretty much just the overall development and use of computer system and networks, right? This is what you're learning when you're becoming an IT technician. You're becoming a data analyst. You're becoming a coder, like Sandy, right? All of these things work hand in hand with each other, right? Because if um, you need IT technicians, help desk to be able to troubleshoot issues that people don't have time for, right? Hey, my PC is not connecting to my printer, or hey, I can't get this SQL working right, or hey, can we fix this in the back end? I need somebody to code. I need this fixed in the back end. So all these things work hand in hand. Then you have your LAN or your local area network. A local area network consists of a series of computers linked together to form a network in a relatively contained location such as home or office buildings. So LANs is very, very important. This is one thing you would definitely learn as an IT technician because you need to learn about networking, right? So what a LAN does is it connects all the computers, all the printers on just one network, right? So let's think of an office building, right? Think of an office building. Office buildings, you may need to print something to someone on the third floor, you on the first, or you may need to print something on the first floor, you on the fifth. As long as you on the same LAN, local area network, you can do that. It works through a series of having these things called switches, which is a small box where a lot of Ethernet ports can go into. You would just have one that would connect to the internet, or it would connect to an intranet, which is pretty much a version of the internet that doesn't connect to the outside world. Everything is kind of contained within your LAN. So a lot of hospitals use this, a lot of local area networks, or wide area networks, which is terminology we'll learn in a few minutes. Schools, a lot of businesses, warehouses, they all uses that because it makes life way easier. So if I need something printed to, one of my coworkers, I can go ahead, load the file up, and when I go to the printer, I can be like printer, third floor, and I can call him or send an email, whatever, and be like, hey, I printed the information you needed. It's printed out right now, and then they'll understand. Get up and go to the printer and pick it up. So that's how that would work, right? And then you have your OS, your operating system, right? Actually, put that right there, right? You have your OSs. Right, you have your OS or your operating system, right? Your operating system connects computer hardware to applications and manage all memory and processes. Some examples include Linux, Apple, Mac OS or and iOS also, and Microsoft Windows. So those are pretty much the big three, right? So you all know about Windows. I'm pretty sure that you're using the Windows laptop right now for the most part. Some may be using OS, Mac OS, even iOS, and the very, very few amount will be maybe using Linux. You also have Chrome OS, Android, which pretty much are the same thing, but you have that too. Some you may be using the Chromebook and using Chrome OS or Android, right? The operating system is how you get all your hardware to work, right? Because your applications or your operating system, it has the code to send to your processor to make everything go, right? When you hit that power button, it boots on, it goes into the BIOS for a hot second, and then it goes and boot and load up Windows, right? Windows 11 for everybody, or it may boot into Mac OS. I'm getting what flavor they're on right now, or even Linux, right? If you use Linux, right? You have things like Steam OS, which is a fork of Linux. You have Penguin, not Penguin, I can't think of it right now, but you have Linux, like the brand, um, Debian. I'm sorry, Debian. You have Debian, which is a fork of Linux. We have so many different forks of Linux. It's crazy. So, but Linux is like a lower level OS. When I say lower level, but it's not as wide known as the big two, which would be Mac OS and Windows. Linux is right there. Linux is used on like Steam OS, like the Steam Deck. It uses Linux. They have a bunch of other like handheld PCs that use Linux. Um, I think the Switch uses Linux. I think the Switch uses Linux or it uses Android. I don't know. I got to be sure, but I know using one of those. And Linux is very very flexible, right? It is very flexible. It really work on a lot of command line prompting. Some can have like icons and um, covers that can make it look like Windows or Mac OS. It's very, very flexible. I have a CyberDeck Linux machine at home that I use. So if I need to force myself into something, if I have to, I can pull that out and pretty much force Linux to work with Windows to, pretty much break me into getting into something. But Linux is very, very helpful. Um, Windows is the big king. It's still like the big daddy of them all because everybody have a Windows, a Windows machine, a laptop, a tablet. Not tablet, but a laptop or a PC. Everybody still use Windows. It's the it uses 886 architecture. Everybody just have it, right? It just make things so much easier because it's scalable, and that's one of the pros and cons. Because you have Mac OS, right, which is really really smooth, right? It's a really smooth OS. You can do it all, right? You can work on media, like work on editing media by music or film or videos, and you can load up a lot of crazy stuff and it can handle like a champ, albeit that you have the hardware with it, like you have 64 gigabytes of RAM and you have a very strong processor. I know now they're using that M series processor. Before they was using, I want to say Intel. They were using Intel processors before they started making their own. They're making the M series, which is very efficient, power wise, and it can also put a lot of powerful, like do a lot of powerful things, like with games and rendering and stuff like that. And it can also handle graphics cards now, so that's a big plus. The reason why Mac OS and iOS is so smooth is because they don't have a lot of companies making MacBooks, right? Apple make their MacBooks just like they make their iPhones. You don't see like a TCL iPhone version, or you don't see something like a LG MacBook. It's Apple, Apple, Apple. So everything kind of stays. Everything for the most part stays the same. Yes, you can get more RAM, and you can get a better solid state drive. You can get a better graphics card. But for the most part, it's still going to run the same across all the board. With Windows, on the other hand, you have so many different brands. You have Dell, you have HP, you have Acer, you have Asus, you have Windows himself, Microsoft himself. It's so many different versions or different brands that's making laptops, and they have to scale it to the certifications, because just like with your CPU, you can't get a cheap CPU where it's a dual core processor, which haven't really been in demand since, I want to say, the early aughts, right? So like think of 2000 to 2010, the dual core processor that when they was really in demand. You can't get like a Pentium processor. I'm pretty sure you can walk right now into a Walmart and buy $100 laptop, and they'll have a dual core processor. It's going to run very, very slow, or all in one. I personally don't recommend those, but I get it if you're in a tight situation, like you're in college and you just need something that can do word processing, like using, Word, Microsoft Word. You can search the web and do research and write your papers. Then I understand, right? But if you have a little bit of money, I would say you go for something a little bit better than some dual core processors. But that's why the OS isn't across the board smooth, like Mac OS, because Mac OS have one developer that makes all their hardware, which is Apple, while Windows license out Microsoft. Where Microsoft licenses out Windows to be put on multiple laptops of different brands. Like I said, you got LG, you got Acer, you have Asus, you have Dell, HP, so many, right? Then you have your RAM, or your random access memory, right? So you build the PC, you need your CPU, and we already established your CPU, or your central processing unit is your processor. Let's say you get you an i5 processor, and then you have to get your GPU, right? Because you need your graphics card, so you can see everything. Unless you have a processor, let me back up real quick. Unless you have a processor that have integrated graphics. So integrated graphics are graphics that are built onto your processor. So if you went to the store and you was like, hey, can I just get a Ryzen 5 processor, right? They would probably just give you a Ryzen 5500, right? And my son did this, and it was very funny. So you like, can I get a Ryzen 5 5500? Yeah. So you go, they give you this 6 core, 12 threads unlocked. It's great. Issue is though, it doesn't have integrated graphics. When you built your PC and you ready to install Windows and everything, and you press the power button, you have a blank screen, and you like, why do I have a blank screen? It's because it doesn't have integrated graphics, right? So most laptops have integrated graphics, right? So if you have the Ryzen, I believe the Ryzen series, I think it's like the X. The X is what have the integrated graphics built in. The Radeon graphics, I believe, is the Radeon graphics. Yeah, it's U. I'm sorry, it's the U series. So the U, the 55. So the U series, not the K. The U series have, or the X. The U series have the integrated Radeon graphics, right? So you don't need to buy a graphics card. You can get away with using a Radeon graphics, integrated graphics on the processor to boot up your PC, to do your web searching, to watch videos, do all of that. And you play certain games at very high, no, they say very high, but high settings and high to medium settings. But if you definitely want to play your video games at a higher graphical level, you would definitely need a graphics card. Now the X series, I'm gonna go back to the processor real quick, but the X series though, with Ryzen, it means you can overclock it. So you still need to buy a graphics card, but the Ryzen X series allows you to overclock your processor. What that means is you can feed it a little bit more power, and it can work a little bit more better. It can produce a lot of good results. We have to do some trial and error for overclocking. With Intel, it would be a K series. So if you got an i7 K series, that allows you to overclock. Yep, that allows you to overclock. So we see the K. So the K series for overclocking for Intel, and the X series for Ryzen allows you to overclock. Both allows you to overclock, get a little bit more power, literally get a little bit more voltage, so we can put out a bit more amazing results when you overclock. With the integrated graphics, it's the G. So the integrated graphics, you would need the G series. But you need your RAM, right? You're gonna need RAM, or random access memory. Um, your RAM is a form of computer storage that can be rewritten multiple times. What that means is, this is your RAM, right? This is just a picture of a RAM just showing you right now. But what your RAM does, it allows you, let me bring that back up, terminology. What that allows you with your RAM is it allows you to have storage saved in your RAM. Now you can't save it yourself, but your PC does. So I'm pretty sure you on some type of browser, like using Chrome or using Firefox, Opera, or even Edge, and you go to a lot of websites a lot. So for example, I go to YouTube a lot. I go to wrestling websites like WrestleZone and Cage Side Seats a lot, and it's gonna, I go there a lot. I go there every day, multiple times a day. What your RAM does is that it's going to take the cookie and or that website information and store it on your RAM. Or let's say you open up FL Studio a lot. You open up let's say Pro Tools. What I say Pro Tools. You open up Pro Tools and a bunch of other things. It's going to just store all the information from those programs that you use a lot into your RAM. So you need to go back instead of you going into your processor all the time, which it still is, but just not as much. It's going to go to your RAM first because it's going to have all the information stored so it can boot up fast, right? So let's say you've been playing Halo. I'm pretty sure at this point your PC knows that you're going to be playing Halo at a certain time. So it's going to have that stored in your RAM. So when you play, it's going to just boot right up into Halo, right? You're going to open up Xbox, you're going to hit, play. It's going to boot right up and everything move a bit faster because it's learning. That's what your RAM is. With your RAM, you have different speeds, right? I think the lowest is like 1,333, I believe, megahertz is the start of the run that can be very, very slow. And then from there you can go up to, I want to say 5,333 gram, which is pretty fast right there. I think it's like DDR. Yeah. I think we're like DDR6 right now, I want to say. Um, but that's what that is, right? Your RAM is definitely important for you to use because it helps your PC go faster. It doesn't allow your processor or even your hard drive or solid state, well, not hard drive, but your solid state drive to do all the work. The RAM take a lot of that load off of both, right? Take the load off of your processor and the load off of your solid state drive, and it helps them do, it helps them relieve all of that so they all can do the work so it can be more efficient. The more RAM you have and the faster RAM you have, the more efficient your PC would be. You won't use as much power, you won't use as much electricity. Well, I didn't say as much electricity, but you won't use as much power like you usually do because you have these other components working hand in hand, sync to sync. So your RAM is definitely very, very important these days. When I get customers and they want to build a PC or they're looking for a laptop, I suggest to them like, hey, 16 gigs of RAM is pretty, is okay. But eventually, especially I get a lot of clients that do a lot of film editing, like multimedia editing. They do film and music and everything. I tell them 32 gigs or up with RAM. And for the speed, I definitely suggest the 33 megahertz speed of RAM that they would need, right? So RAM is definitely very, very important. So let's go back to terminology. So you have troubleshooting, which we are going to learn in class. With troubleshooting is the process of identifying problems with a network through a rigorous and repeatable process. It is solving those problems using testable methods, right? So processing is pretty much trying to figure out what the problem is. So for example, your laptop is not connected to the printer. Okay, was it working today? Yes, it just started doing this. Okay, when did it stop? Like an hour ago. I used it this afternoon. I mean, I used it this morning. It was working fine. I even used it 3 hours ago. It was working fine, but it was just within this past last hour, it would stop working. Okay, if the internet working, you to the internet. Yes, I am coming to the internet working. And you pretty much just ask questions so you can minimize all these different scenarios about why it isn't working. Because it could be something as simple as it need a driver update. It could be something simple as the print spooler is a bit logged up, so you need to unlog it. You got to go in and unclear it out so you can, for the laptop know exactly what it's trying to send, and the printer understand what it's trying to send. It could be a multitude of things, but troubleshooting is the first step of figuring out a lot of problems. And a lot of that is just asking a lot of questions. I'm pretty sure you all have called 1-800 numbers when something wasn't working, and they ask you a bunch of questions. Hey, is your PC on? Is it, it's not frozen, it's not stuck? Are you connected to the internet? Um, could you unhook it from the internet and restart it? Could you power cycle your router? Could you do a bunch of things? The reason why they're asking you all these questions is because they're trying to minimize what the problem could be. Because if you just try to go in head first, you're gonna have a very long day. But if you ask questions first about what the issue is and get down to the nitty gritty, you will be able to figure out a bit more faster what the issue is than you would if you just dive in head first. Because you could say like, hey, well, let's do this, and then you messed up something else. Now you got to fix that problem for somebody else, right? Because you couldn't, restart the printer, and now it's not printing for somebody else, and they were just fine, right? So that's why you ask questions so you can figure out what's going on. So a lot of the times it could be driver issues. You may have to update the driver. You may need to roll back the driver. A bunch of things it could be. So definitely want to ask questions. You definitely want to troubleshoot whatever issue that you is, and this will be your main tool when you are doing IT help desk, IT technician work, is the troubleshooting process. Then you have your VPN. I'm pretty sure some of you know what the VPN is. Your VPN is your virtual private network. It's an extension of a private network of public resources using dedicated hardware or software to create extension and securely transmit data. So your VPN pretty much help mask your IP address, which is your internet protocol address that every laptop, PC, phone, if it connects to the internet, it have an IP address, have a MAC address, and we'll get into that later on next week for terminology. But it helps protect you, right? Especially when you use public Wi-Fi, it helps protect you because you don't want to go on your bank account information, right? You want your bank information on public Wi-Fi. You don't want that. You're going to get hacked and they're going to take your money. So you want to use a VPN, which pretty much uses an IP address from overseas somewhere or even in the States that can be completely made up, just randomly generated. And it just masks your real IP address by using that so people can't hack into your information. That's what a VPN. You all heard like a Express VPN, NordVPN. I use VPN Unlimited. Myself, I use a VPN, but it also allows you to spoof a lot of these websites and even these streaming services, right? You heard of people using Netflix, VPN on Netflix because the Canadian Netflix is so much better, or the overseas Netflix have way more stuff, and they watch that by using VPN. So VPNs is definitely very helpful. Definitely would recommend you now during this time to definitely check out and look into about investing into a VPN. And then you have your WAN, which is your wide area network, um, which is a large network of information and data that is not tied to a single location. So unlike the LAN, which is like pretty much like an office building, hospital, this is wide and varied. So this allows you to, access information, but it's not to just one place. It could be multiple places where you're trying to access this information. And all this, by the way, works hand in hand with your VPN, right? For example, my sister, she works for in Indianapolis for an insurance company, and she was out of state and she needed to access information that was in California, but she couldn't do that until she logged into a VPN first to protect herself, and then she can log into the stuff in California, download it, and then email it to someone that was in New York, right? So that happens a lot. Both of these usually work hand in hand to protect not only yourself but the company and their information, their privileged information. So the next three will be pretty much about like security, and we're going to get deep into that. Not deep into it, but we're going to talk about that also in these next 6 weeks. But the first one is spoofing, which is when cyber criminals use deception to appear as another person or source of information. The second one is social engineering, which what these two will be under, is the method of gaining trust of a user so that the attacker can acquire sensitive information that can be used to access data. And then lastly, of course, is phishing. Phishing attacks uses email, phones, or text to get someone to provide sensitive information such as password and credit card information. So these two, spoofing and phishing, are directly under the umbrella of social engineering. Social engineering works like this. Let's say I need a document. Let's say I'm some ICE genius and I need to get some information from HR, like a list or something like that. I don't work for them. I never worked for them, but I need this information and I know they're not just going to give it to me. So I need to get it under other means. How would you do that? One way you can do is social engineering, where you will call the place, make it seem like you just got hired, right? You found out that these people are hiring and you just got hired, so you can fake your way into a phone call, something like this. Hey, how you doing? I just got hired there. And I start next Monday. And I just want to know like what restaurants was near, because lunchtime I really want to eat, but I don't want to eat like pork, or I don't want to eat meat. There's some vegetarian options over there. And then she would tell you all the restaurants that's over there. She may visit them herself, or a bunch of coworkers may go there, which would be perfect because you can go to that restaurant, just sit there, eat, have your laptop, just be in incognito mode, and you can get the information that you would need to enter the building, right? They may have an NFC card, you can copy it, a bunch of information that you can get right then and there. That would allow you to copy the NFC card, make a fake account. You'll be able to go in and go into the building, get the information that you need, and just walk out. That happens a lot. Actually, happen more often than not. So social engineering is a perfect tool for you in order to get information by devious means. Spoofing, same thing, because you're using spoofing within social engineering to appear as another person or source of information when you don't even work for that person at all, that company at all. But you have so much information that will be available to you on the internet, right? The company directory, all of that, which is insane, but it happens. And then phishing, of course, is probably one of the most common ways of deception, right? Pretty much it's people that make up fake websites, email accounts, all of that. I've seen this happen a lot. For example, I had a friend, she ordered some clothes, like $150 worth of clothes from this website. She ordered it, and like for a month or two, she didn't hear anything. She's like, what's going on? Then she finds out that it was a fake website. The website don't even exist no more. The email address he sent is gone. All of that. So, and how that happens is they make a website to just get your information. So they just want your phone number, they want your credit card information, the CVV number, the expiration date, all of it. And you would normally give that to them, but not knowing that it's not a real account, right? So a lot of old people get fake with that a lot, like we're paying like water bills, electricity bills, like a ComEd bill. But the things I would say to look out for is the email address, right? Most companies will have like a no reply at ComEd.com or no reply at nightcore.com, people gas, whatever, it would be no reply because it's just a mailbox to send out information, right? That's all that is. It's not, they don't have an inbox. It's literally just sends out information. So you may have a bill, it's going to send that out. That's all that is. Government agencies like Social Security, the IRS, they never send out emails to your personal account. They always go through something like a third party. So for example, let's say you have like a letter with Social Security. They may send you a notification through your email saying like, hey, check your Social Security account at ssa.gov to check out you have a notification. They may do that, but they would never just willingly send out information directly to your email address, right? Same thing with the IRS. They will mail you letters first, or if you signed up for it, you've made your account, you can get online alerts to check out the digital version of those letters, but they will never just send out information directly to your email address. It's always like multiple steps you will have to go through to make sure you are using to protect yourself. So these are things you need to look out for. Just look at the email address. The wording can be looking weird. Look at the bottom of the email because it may have some unsubscribe or something like that. Protect yourself from phishing attacks. And then we have the last three, which is network administrator, IT project manager, and IT support specialist. So network administrators are the IT pros that support an organization internal service by installing, maintaining, and monitoring systems. So that is what I'm inspired to be right now as a network administrator. Pretty much all they do are just watch the service. They make sure that the servers are staying updated, that they're security protected, and then you're just monitoring it. You're making sure that all the hard drives are working correctly. If you have to replace a hard drive because of they'll be put in RAID, all of that. That's pretty much what you do. All level 2 stuff. So server work. You may have to look at like the networks. So make sure all the switches are working correctly. Make sure that all the routers are working correctly. You may have to, run cord. Well, not yourself, but you may have to make sure to change the cord up there to a stronger cat so more information be pushed through. That's pretty much what you do. The IT project manager is someone who set the timeline for technical projects and keep the team on task and budget. So you are just the head of a team. Let's say your team have to, finish this coding project that they've been working on for this, the back end coding for this website. So you're just making sure they stay on the timeline and keep them on task and on budget. They don't go over. If they can go, get it done in less amount of time, that'd be great. But you just want to make sure they don't go over the budget and they don't go over the days that have been given to them to complete the task. And of course, we have the IT support specialist or help desk technicians. That's what I am right now. They're individuals responsible for analyzing, troubleshooting, and evaluating technology issues. So you are the first line. You're a level 1. You handle a bunch of the grunt work and also some more advanced things, like making sure the printer network is working correctly, make sure that the firewall is on or is off, make sure they don't have no viruses, no malware, things of that nature, making sure that you put a block in the browser. That's what you're doing. That's pretty much what you all are doing as a whole with IT help desk technicians. You're just level 1. Like I said, just front line. Sometimes you're going to do some level 2 work. Some, like I was doing at Roseland Community Hospital, I was level 1, but I was also doing level 2 stuff. So I was helping them with the server. I was helping them replace things. I was helping make sure that it was staying updated, all of that. But I was also in charge of a lot of level 1 stuff. So when I had to install PCs, I would set them up in the office, make sure Windows is installed, make sure they hook to the domain, make sure they have all the programs they needed. If they need a special program because they work in a special department, a different department, make sure they have access to that program is working correctly, and then go install it, take the old one down, make sure everything working, and then do inventory. So you're doing a lot of the grunt work, but it's actually pretty fun. It's pretty enjoyable, especially when they start giving you level 2 work. It gets a bit crazy. So right now, before you end class, I'm going to play this video, which will be this. I'm going to play this video, and I already have it loaded up right here. So let's go ahead and play this, and then after that, we wrap up class, and I will tell you what we'll be doing next week.
We are living in a world where humans rely on inanimate objects. A combination of metal, rubber parts, and fuel can help you get from one place to a distant place without breaking a sweat. Pieces of plastic and metal put together the right way can make you communicate with someone who's miles away from you. And most importantly, information and data can now be stored and retrieved later on. And the world is in need of people who understand how this information and technology works. So what exactly is information technology? First and foremost, it must be understood that this is a very broad topic. But information technology is the use of computer systems, storages, networks and tangible devices, technological infrastructure, systems and processes to create, modify, transfer, store, multiply, and exchange all forms of electronic data. So what exactly is data? Data is every type of information from facts, statistics, numerical sequences, and patterns, which is analyzed, studied, compared, modified, stored, and overall used as a component in the overall information that the technology user needs. The value of information technology is that although people are capable of handling data using our brains, and even the old paper and pen processes, these processes are not as reliable, efficient, and effective as relying on information technology. A computer can process millions of pieces of data at a given time. Its storage or memory can hold and secure information without forgetting a single piece of data. So where is information technology applicable? From the general information above, information technology plays a significant role in business. Some examples of this would be customer handling, all the way from handling customer service, personal day-to-day communication, storing financial records, and all other human activities that deal with handling electronic data. Information technology is essential to the day-to-day operations of a business, and even more important when it comes to scaling your business to make more money. And this is why learning the skills of information technology is incredibly valuable whether you want to get a job or start your own business. Next, let's talk about hardware versus software. Before we can discuss examples of information technology, it's important that we talk about hardware and software. Hardware is tangible technology that you can actually touch when it comes to dealing with information technology, from personal computers, laptops, mobile phones, tablets, and everything else that is physical and is used for the purposes of IT. Software, on the other hand, is intangible, aka you can't touch it. So this would be things such as websites, computer programs, or systems and applications. And it's going to be broadly separated into two different groups, which is software systems and applications. Software systems are basic programs that are tasked to perform computer functions at its most basic level. An example of this would be an operating system for a phone, such as iOS or Android. Applications, on the other hand, also have a lot of examples, such as databases, email servers, transaction processing systems, process control systems, enterprise collaboration systems, and many more. Some examples of this would be Slack, Dropbox, HubSpot, Google Drive, and Microsoft Office. Next, let's talk about information technology as a career path. Information technology is very broad, but it is a great career path. If you are able to learn the skills of information technology with the constant rise of technology in this modernized world, it is safe to say that you will almost definitely have a job. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the median annual wage for computer and information technology occupations is $97,000. That's over twice the median annual wage for all other applications, which is $45,000. And according to Glassdoor.com, an entry-level position as an IT help desk technician makes over $50,000 a year. So not only does information technology offer you a good salary, but being in IT keeps you updated with the latest in technology innovation. A few examples of fields related to information technology are IT management, computer systems analyst, web development, cybersecurity, cloud administration, and database administration. If you want to learn a way to get into information technology in a few months, click the free training, which I will put down in the description as well as the pinned comment below. This free training is offered by a company called Course Careers, which I've mentioned before, which routinely
Yeah, sorry about that. But that's the end of the video for the most part. But yeah, we will get into that. But that video had a lot of information. As you see, you have a multitude of things that you can definitely do, right? If you want to do IT help estimation, if you want to do be a data analyst, if you want to do coding, if you want to do engineering, you have the world of your oyster in IC, and it's something that I kind of push for doing this class because I want you all to learn another skill that is going to be very, very helpful in the future. And if you like it, I hope it sparks an idea for you to go further into the IT field. But that is the end of tonight's class. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can reach me at this email address right here, aramis.singleton@clickservices.nfp.org. And you can also check out our website at clickservices.org. And again, my name is Aramis Singleton. Next week, we'll pick it up with terminology part 2. Learn some more terminology, IT terminology words. And we will be learning more about PCs, like how do you build a PC, what is it, what all do you need when you're going into building your PC, especially specifically what you're looking for. And we will also learn about command prompt too. I know we were supposed to get to that today, but we will get to that next week about command prompt. So, but again, like any questions, aramis.singleton@clickservices.nfp.org, or if you are here in person, you can pull me over to the side before and after class, and I will help you out the best that I can. Elijah, do you have any questions? Elijah? All right. Well, again, like I said, next week, terminology part 2. Learning how to build a PC, learning what do you need to build a PC, and some CMD command prompts, like what that is, and just the basic command prompts that you should just know off the back of your hand, like ipconfig and stuff like that. But until then, you all have a great night. I will see you on Friday for the streaming class, and I will see you on next Tuesday for part 2 terminology. But until then, you all have a great night, and you all take care.